Talk Show.
Recorded live.
Okay, I'm trying to find my headphones that actually let you hear me and let me hear you, and I'm having a little trouble doing that. They were just here. But I will do that in a minute because we're going to talk to Matt again, or Matt's going to talk to us about some of the logical aspects of some of the stuff that we're dealing with, so that we can present it logically to whomever we decide to present it to in a cohesive fashion. And damn it, we may just have to do this with my weird. And I'm the only one who's been in the house all day, so I know it's not them. Anyway, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, guys. Okay, Matthew, you're there? You're with me? Can you hear me?
I'm with you.
Good, okay.
If my microphone sounds bad at all, you let me know, and I'll switch to putting the phone to my head.
Oh, we don't want to hear you do that. Okay, hon. Okay. I'm going to mute the room while we go through this information. Okay, you guys.
Is Mike with us tonight, too?
Yeah, he sure is. He's right there.
Okay, this is a team effort.
Yeah. Hi, Mike.
Yeah.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, how are you?
Okay. Good, how are you?
Good.
Okay. I had a whole presentation that went by the wayside, but I still have the one we put together the other day, so I'm not totally without here. But I do want to, as I mute the room, hold on, you guys. I just want to make it clear what we're trying to do so that everybody understands and doesn't feel that we're, I don't know how to put it, but I'm trying to mute the room. There we go. I don't know why Southeast Missouri didn't mute. I'm Matthew. I'm going to unmute you, and there we go. And Mike. Okay. Come on, Mike. Yours is coming. There we go. Okay. What we're doing here is trying to. Now my computer has frozen. This is just adorable. Here we go. Kind of the idea here, and what we're going to do, and if need be, we'll do it on a separate forum. But I think it'd be good if we could do this here. Is basically the idea is to weed through all the information that is out there. There's a lot of information, and streamline it in so that it can be presented in a logical format to people who can help us. And if we start going on too many extraneous issues, they're just going to say, "Hey, we don't care. There's too much information. We don't want to give them too much information to find a way not to be concerned about it." You know? And who is cracking that noise? Whoever's eating, don't. Okay. All right. Also, some people have complained about the way I handle the call or whatever, and I just want to tell you guys that if you don't like my call, you don't have to come here. There are 3 other calls on Friday night. That one of them is John, who used to do calls, and then he kind of drifted away for quite a while and got kind of inconsistent because of his own issues. Anyway, he's still around, and he alternatively has calls on Friday nights at 9 at the same time as this. We have Lauren, who has her call that she set up opposite of mine on Friday nights, and I think she talks about birth certificates, and we're on the stock market or something, and Social Security issues being traded on the stock market. I'm not sure what that's all about, but there is another call. And then there's a Beth from Florida who has a call, and she announced that she was going to have it on Neil's call quite a while ago, and I think Neil posted it. I'm not sure if he still got it, but I'm sure you can ask Neil more about it. And there is her Friday night call too. So there are a total of 4 Friday night calls. So don't feel that you're stuck here. If you don't want to be here, nobody is going to make you be here. Okay, that's what I'm saying. And as I say, our goal is to streamline things, get them in a logical platform that we can move forward with. And we've got a great part of this group, Terry, who's adamant about getting all this information out there one way or the other. And Terry's now looking into multimedia groups to get this out to. He's not just sticking with people he's handing them to. He's going all the way, and that's terrific. And what we want is some really good, concise information for him to send so we can get moving with this. Okay. So I think that's all I wanted to say. I was mad when I wrote that because I keep getting sniped by somebody. So, but I don't think I'll go into all that. Okay. I don't know where my other thing is. Okay. What we talked about, what Matt and Mike and I talked about, what we wanted to address is the most common effects of electronic harassment that we hear about and that we seem to experience. We want to address those issues. Just a minute. This is not about to. Okay. Just address them. All right. Whether it's documented or not documented, but relatively provable. For instance, I think one of the most important things that we seem to ignore is the fact that the guy that is now living in Russia, we were just talking about him, that worked for the NSA, and he became a whistleblower. He's given us some solid information, and we somehow keep going off into these other venues. He's talking about the fact that, the way they read our minds is they do hook into our computers. They do watch how we compose, how we pause and then back up, change our minds. That's what they can watch, and they get a lot of information about us that way. They also.
You're talking about Edward Snowden?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Matthew. Yes. He's given us and he's from the inside. Derek has been talking about the security guy who's from the inside, whistleblower. Well, Edward Snowden was really on the inside writing this stuff and really knows what they can do from the inside. I think he's just such a wise source for us to rely on. What he says, I think, is so important for us to understand. And he says that's how they can, he says, no, they don't read your minds. They read your mind that way. They pick it up off of what you type. It's also how he says they see what you're thinking is by watching what you type. That's what he's talking about. Now, I know a lot of people have decided that, we can see through the eyes, and I'm sure at some point that will be proven. I'm not sure that's totally what we need to present to the whole world right now, because I'm not sure they're going to move in with that and say, yeah, okay. But if Edward Snowden talks about a very logical platform for this information, then I think that's really valuable for us, because it's a very valid, valuable source. Okay, what we all talked about with regards to these issues that we all experience, number one, physical, and the physical pain, tingling electric feeling that when you start to tingle, you feel like electricity is running from you. And next issue is vibrations and muscles twitching. My mouth is swollen today. I sound very weird. Muscle twitching, trembling, heart racing. Boy, that's a tough one. Heart racing, nausea, sweating, shortness of breath. Some of these really physical things that are so uncomfortable for us. Okay. Injuries that we receive, the burns, the burst capillaries, loss of hair. Some people have blood to their sinuses. Some have blood out of their noses. Ears. Okay. Now, also the mind nervous system is kind of in line with this, but anyway, okay. A lot of us experience depression, confusion, PTSD effects, and I can't read the other thing I wrote down. Brought on by radio frequencies. A lot of this is about radio frequencies. Is that my understanding? Okay. We talked about mental effects. Also, we wanted to press, too, that if you do go to the doctor, please don't tell them what you think it is. Please just give them what the physical impact is on your body, what's happening to you physically. It's the doctor's job to work it out and treat you in a manner that relieves your symptoms. That's his job. It's not your job to inform him of where they're coming from, because, we're not real sure yet. When we are absolutely, absolutely sure, great. But we're not absolutely sure yet. So before we start telling you don't want to go. I think less and less people are being put into mental hospitals these days because we do have proof. But don't push it. Please don't. And then we've also got issues of B2K, visual effects complained of. I'm not sure that we got into that very well, Matthew, but I know you know what we're talking about there. And activism. If we don't do anything, then nothing is going to get done, and we know that. We all know that. So if we can at least get out there and pass out the flyers, do something. Do research. Sit and research. And write it up. Send it to Terry. Terry is wonderful about taking the information he gets and posting it on his site, which is going to be the biggest one ever soon. I mean, he's got so much great information there. If you need to know something, go to Terry's site. You'll find it there. And he's really dedicated. So that's kind of where we're going tonight. We want to talk about those subjects. Matthew's going to give us some background information on it, and Matthew is concerned that I'm pushing. Matthew is not, none of us are trying to say Matthew is the be-all to end-all. He knows everything. No. Matthew has a good solid knowing this stuff. He's not feeling like he's somehow superior or anything. He's just here to do his best to help us. That's what we're all trying to do. Just help. We're not here to have controversies and get into fights about who has the most important information. It kind of doesn't matter. We just want it to be useful and to have people be interested in reading it. Okay? So, Matthew, there you go. That's my presentation.
Well, thanks for that list, Linda. I think that pretty much covers what I hear as the more common effects that people report when they're under this kind of harassment. What do you think, Mike?
Mike? Oh my God! No, you're unmuted.
Sorry, I'm right here. I think that that actually covers a part of what people have to try and get together and realize what is happening to them and what isn't happening to them. And we're trying to start getting people together to realize that we have to just try to get out of our own echo chamber, I think is what we could say. Yeah. Sorry, I just got home. I just got home from someplace. I'm trying to put some stuff away.
Oh,
I think.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Too long we've been kind of living in like our own echo chamber, where we all get together and pass around information and talk about information on the calls about different things that most of us have read and try and take it as gospel because it seems like that's what's happening to us, and because the articles or the sites that we get the information from seem like they're legitimate, credible sources, and more than 50% of the time they're not. And I'm sure that people will say, no, I'm wrong, and on and on and on. But I've been doing this for a while. I've been here listening to people bounce this stuff back and forth for 10 years. And I'm sure there's other people around there for 10 years. That's way too long for me or for anyone. And we have to try to get down, even if it's not something that anyone finds exciting or unusual. We have to have the truth. We have to have rational truth that we can take to the people outside of our own little echo chamber, which we're going to actually have to dismantle ourselves. When we go to the people outside the community that we think will be able to help us and at least understand what's going on, we have to give them things that they can understand and won't turn away after the third sentence because it sounds too strange, it doesn't sound rational, and the delusional rubber stamp on your forehead is coming into their into their vision. So, yeah.
May I? Okay. Yes. Damn it! Thank you. That you totally remind. Okay. I'm sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off. I thank you for saying that. And you're right about the delusional. You guys. You know how we all found out information slowly? Think about what you now think, and think about when you very first came here. If you heard all of what you're hearing now, would you have said, these people are crazy? Back then, we're presenting information to people who never have even heard what we're talking about before. And that's why we need to weed out the extraneous. Maybe it's all true, and maybe someday we will all have it proven, and it will be wonderful. But right now we need to streamline so we can move forward, and not go around in these circles. Does that make sense? Right, Mike? Right, Matt?
Yep, that makes a lot of sense to me.
And probably because of this, a lot of what we've talked about in the past shouldn't be talked about in the future. We should scrap a lot of it and really focus on things that we can verify and get across to one another and to people outside the community.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't worry.
What's happening in Cuba?
Well, yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't worry. We're not going to say you're never going to hear about it again, and that's not true. And that, let's ease it out of the way for now. Let's put it in the side pocket for now. All this other stuff. And go with the main information. Because
every day our lives, another day, another hour, another week, another month is being taken away because this is always looming.
Right.
Not only is it looming or lurking, it's trying to be the main focus of our lives. And I think that because I've been involved with the community to a greater or lesser extent for the past 10 years, that's way too much of my life and anyone's life. And because of the lack of credibility and the lack of people who would be at the forefront, who could that we could be able to put on the front line to communicate with people outside the TI community was lacking, and there were a lot of missteps and wrong turns. I think that now in the past couple of years, the momentum has really built up for us to be able to get a valid foothold. We really have to try this. That's too long. How long do you think? It's going to be how long? It's never tolerable to let people continue on like this, to mock everyone's life, to try and torment them, to gaslight them, to psychologically abuse them, to physically abuse them. Any of this.
Yeah, this is not.
This has to.
What's happening in Cuba?
Yeah.
What's happening in Cuba is really going to help the TIs because of this is setting a precedent. This Dave case, sorry. But yeah, in Cuba, this is direct evidence of this technology being used on U.S. diplomats. That means we will be able to subpoena their investigation, and that will be supporting evidence of this technology that proves that it exists and is being used.
Is that Dave Case?
The sonic attack on our diplomats.
Did I hear Dave Case? Dave, hi. You need to join the conference we have every so often. But I didn't know you were there.
Hi, Dave. How's it going?
Good to see you. Good to hear from you.
Hey, how you doing?
So glad to hear you here.
Good.
And I think we all agree with that. This is great information. Edward Snowden has busted them. The Cuba issue. There is solid proof that something is going on. We don't have to run around and worry about going to Mars anymore. We just don't. We just don't have to get crazy anymore. We can just stay within the proof. We have proof. And and just your CD, Dave, that counters the tinnitus so well. I mean, that's proof too. Don't you think? That's proof that they're doing something to us and that it can be countered. Are you there, Dave?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that's proof. What do you guys, Mike, Matt, what do you think?
I think that Dave's countermeasure, in being a critical thinker, I wouldn't call it proof of what they're doing, but I would say that it's a good demonstration that a countermeasure that interfaces with your sensory system and perceptions is having some positive effect, suggesting that the harassment signals are also having an effect on your sensory systems, nervous system, and perceptions. So to me, I would say it that way, that it's a demonstration that a countermeasure on the same system is helping something, suggesting that the harassment signal is impacting those systems also.
Okay, but would a countermeasure work if there wasn't the original measure in the first place?
Well, I think you just said it. You just said what I was trying to say in a more careful way.
Oh, okay.
What you just said.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that's what I was trying to say too.
Yeah.
I guess it didn't come out quite right.
Well, you know, I have many testimony letters, and we're up to 180 people that have been helped or cured. So legally, that is eyewitness testimony.
Yes.
And I do believe that is evidence that their equipment exists. And, you know,
I like it.
Eyewitness testimony is legitimate evidence in court of law.
Right. I agree. And I think you're highlighting the Cuba thing is really important. And if I may, I just want to say a couple things on that. One thing that situation instructs me about is that probably I'm assuming that is getting attention because what you could call what a scientist might say about that is that there was a cluster of incidents, and because it was clustered and because it was affecting high-profile people, it was impossible to be ignored when a cluster of prominent people were complaining about these exotic symptoms. And so that's instructive to me because moving forward, I think TIs will be able to use that same approach. We have been trying to do that, but especially if things are tightly clustered, if people in the same household are assaulted that way within a short space of time, that's obviously very powerful, and that's probably what's driving these revelations from Cuba.
And thank God we've got those revelations. That is serious information for us, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some
and those diplomats.
Yeah. With brain damage, hearing loss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think
their symptoms were very similar to the TIs, chirping like crickets in their ears, ringing, many of the same effects that, you know, people talk about on these calls. These diplomats were experiencing.
Well, the tinnitus was something that they were discussing, I think, and that's a little scary. I mean, you know, although, well, it'll be less scary for me soon. I want to talk to you tomorrow, Dave. You don't mind giving your phone number out on the call, do you, Dave?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 573.
My other computer went down.
300.
573-300. Okay.
1579.
157. Thank you very much. Are you going to be around tomorrow?
Yeah.
Good.
And I sent you another version of the CD. Did you get that?
Yes, I certainly did, and it's a little easier on the ear. My only problem is that I was listening to it through my computer because I had to, and my computer went down. So I need to work a deal with you where I can send you some funds and maybe we can arrange something, okay? If we can.
Well, yeah, if you can just send me your letter.
Oh, yeah. Oh, really? Well, that went down with the help on that computer. I have bought a good CD, hopefully to make things better. But yeah, you will, and it'll be even better because I get to talk about the fact how many CD players have been destroyed when I've tried to use it. Somebody does not want that to be used. That's a pretty good confirmation that this is it is very useful. And I know because I haven't been able to use it for a while, and my fear factor has gone way up. I'm afraid of everything. When I use that, I'm not afraid. When I can't use it, I hear the tinnitus at night, and I wake up yelling at myself about how I can't do anything right, and I'm scared. So that's a really important aspect of your CD. Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of reports. I gotten a lot of reports. The version 3 CD is helping much better with the D2K.
Great. I don't have that.
Those letters I get.
Yeah, that's so good.
Well, I'm just telling everybody, you know.
You mean not just me? I'm just kidding. Yes, that is great. That is so good, Dave. You also have it's something that we can plug in our rooms, and it will kind of take in the whole room, right?
That's a filter plug that removes any frequencies from your house wiring. But, the CD is way better, more powerful system. And, that's more important than the wall plug.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. But thank you. Thank you, you guys. Okay. Here we go. Matt, where were you? Mike, where were you? Where were we? I'm supposed to be running this show. I don't have a clue. Okay.
Well, we were talking a little bit about the Cuba incident.
Yeah.
And one thing that I'm personally holding out on for more information is that I'm not convinced yet that these are necessarily sonic attacks. That's what they're being called.
Yeah.
But I believe that the same symptoms could be mediated by radio frequency assaults, which just might be being called sonic attacks because maybe that's a little bit easier for the media to wrap their heads around. I don't know if we have complete information on that. They may be sonic attacks, but I think we're going to hopefully get more enlightenment and more verified information on that. Certainly, the attacks are some kind of electronic attacks, very, very much like what TIs experience, and that's very significant.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, I think I'm not sure who reported. Was it our government reported that? Well, I was going to say then people will believe it, but that's not necessarily true, is it?
I don't even know if we know the timeline of how that information came out. Yeah, I mean, was it the State Department that released that, or are those victims talking to the media themselves?
I don't know.
No, the State Department would not allow them to talk to the victims because there's ongoing investigation. The State Department released the information.
Whoa. Well, that's good. There's something else. I don't know. Did we talk about this, Mike and Matt? When we talked, I don't think we talked about the biofilm, but the department. Oh, we did on your call, right, Mike? Didn't we talk about this on your call?
We did for a little bit, right?
Yeah, and Sumaya's got a lot of information on the biofilm. The biofilm has been confirmed by the Department of what is it called, Mike? Well, the health agency for the government. They have
Health and Human Services.
No, it's DIH. I'm not sure who that is. Department of Health and whatever. I'm sorry, I'm not very intelligent tonight. I've been hammered so hard, and my brain is so dead.
Sorry.
Thank you. In any event, the biofilm.
Can you summarize that story? Can you put that story into a nutshell? I
wish I could.
I'm not aware of that information.
Okay, and I don't, and I'm not sure I even have the link, but I'm sure I do because I saved it in Terry's file. It's about the fact that there is a biofilm. The bacteria in the dirt does create they sort of create a war between themselves, the bacteria, which bacteria is going to survive. And when they do that, they emit a lot of toxins. Mike, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But they emit toxins that form kind of a structured film that can be picked up by our animals, can be picked up by us, can be used in various matters. And what it does is it takes the bacteria and sort of melds it to our skin. And that's a truth, according to our government. And Sumaya has been talking about that for quite a while and been quite concerned about that. And it obviously, if we ingest it, it's going to make us sicker. If we have it absorbed through our skin, we're not going to be as well. It's a way to make us sick, is I guess what I'm saying, what I think Sumaya is talking about. And there are ways to deal with it. They had a list of the ways to deal with it, and I'll find that when I find the article. Does that make sense? You hear what I'm saying?
Yep. Thanks for that.
Okay, absolutely. Okay, so we talked about the pain Did we talk about what we wanted to talk about that with the physical pain that we're feeling? We all agree we do have physical pain. Did you want to talk about more what you've heard, Matthew or Mike?
Well, I think when you mention pain as an effect in relation to electronic harassment, I think a good way to introduce people to that subject is to mention things like the following. You can say something like, we know that the military is very interested and very active in developing anti-personnel weapon systems that use radio frequency and sonic energy sources. And the primary effect of those, bioeffect of those, which is known and published and documented, is pain. And we think that criminal groups, of various kinds, we don't know exactly what, are using similar types of technologies to inflict pain on people for their nefarious purposes. That's one way into that topic. And another way is that the medical industry uses a lot of different radio frequency devices, and examples are skin tightening. There's a lot in the cosmetic industry, and they also have ones that like ablate varicose veins. And if you have one of those procedures, there is pain that is produced from those procedures. And I had a procedure for veins that I wanted to have removed, and that was a painful procedure. And in fact, I came to realize that the type of pain, the quality of the pain, was very similar to some of the brief stings that I got during electronic harassment.
Yeah. I also have, it's not necessarily stings, it's just I get hit in my knees. I can just feel my knees getting hit, and I now protect them with magnets and all that stuff. But before I started protecting them, it created a condition in my legs, and which radiated up through into my back that I could barely walk, and it went from one leg to the other, and they were hitting me both times. I could feel it. That's I would suggest that anybody's thinking about protecting themselves, magnets, I think, are a great idea. They protect me like crazy, and they literally have mattress pads with magnets in them. You can buy those. I just put those over my knees when I'm on my computer, and I've gotten rid of. I can now walk again, and I could not walk for a couple of weeks. In fact, I bought myself a cane because it was getting so bad, and I just couldn't walk. So we do know they can cause pain by hitting. They know where to hit us to hit nerves that will then start reacting with muscles that will react to the nerve, react to the muscle, and that's how it starts with, muscle cramps and muscle pain. And we can stop that. We can protect ourselves, in my opinion. At least it works for me.
Well, in that line of reasoning is similar to the evidence aspect of Dave's CD.
Yeah.
And that is when you shield yourself in various ways that are consistent with shielding or deflecting electromagnetic signals, or if I think sonic attacks, my personal view is that they're rare. They're more rare than electromagnetic attacks. But that if you shield yourself and you get relief, and you can document that even in just your sworn affidavit, that then becomes a line of evidence that is consistent with that mode of attack too.
Well, that's part of my CD. I use ultrasonics on my CD, and it interferes with what I come to understand is an ultrasonic attack. In other words, the tinnitus is only a small part of what you can hear. The larger part is above your hearing range. So it is like a sonic attack. And believe it or not, I didn't realize it, but I got many testimony letters where the CD actually helps reduce the pain of the attack because it's stopping the attack system. And I've never had no pain, so I didn't never realize that. But I kept getting more letters and more letters, people saying that the pain in their head and neck is decreased. And at first I just discounted it. I'm like, well, it's just a coincidence. But I can't tell you how many letters I've got that listening to the CD reduces the pain they're feeling because it stops the attack.
Yeah. Well, pain is related to brain activity, right? I mean, I know Neurontin is a pain reliever that what it does is it cuts the messages. The brain never receives the message of the pain, and I would think that would help cut that message. Is that making sense? I don't know if it is. But
well, they're causing brain. They're causing.
Yeah.
From what I understand, they're causing brain damage with these systems, and anytime you cause brain damage or interference in the body, it's going to cause pain and all kinds of malfunctions, etc. Mm-hmm. And once they get through several weeks of the CD, they notice dramatic improvements on many, many aspects.
Yes, yes. I know my brain fog clears up. That's huge for me,
right.
With other things, yeah.
But you got to get your super quality voice recorder going because they're not going to CD players out so much.
Well, that's what I want to talk to you about. I want to see if we can make a deal where I'll talk to you about it tomorrow, okay? Because it's not going to happen from here. I mean, how many CD players can I buy? It's not going to happen. I don't know my way around here, so getting to a store and on and on and on, and who knows? But we can work. I think we can work something out. Okay, it'll work.
Okay.
Hey, Dave. How do you distinguish a sonic attack from an electromagnetic attack? How do you know that it's sonic?
Well, because I guess what I'm saying is ultrasonic. That all sonic means is sound.
Right, I know that. I mean, I'm assuming, yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is my CD incorporates ultrasonic pulses and other waveforms. And in my own experience as being attacked, I noticed that the tinnitus actually is a small part of it, and it is in the upper hearing ranges, the ultrasonics, that when the microwaves or the pulsed energy fields hit the skin, it transduces those into a lower frequency, which is audio. That's why you hear sounds, V2K, tinnitus, etc. But most of that audio is above your hearing. And that's what my CD interferes with.
Okay, I'm just writing. Excuse me while I'm just writing a message to some people in the chat room. Mute. Okay. So I'm sorry, all sonic is sound, or I'm sorry, I missed that. Anyway, okay. I'm not sure I got that, but that's okay. Okay. Tingling, that electrical feeling, do we know where that comes from? And my go-to thing are magnets at all times, but I don't always know where everything's coming from. So I don't quite know how to. Do we know how to shield ourselves from the tingling feeling? Do we have any ideas on that, Matthew or Mike or Dave?
Well, your first question. So, a lot of these questions, the studies. First of all, they cover. They can cover such a wide bandwidth of. They have a wide range of bandwidths and modulations and amplitudes and all of that to work with. and the studies relating specific effects to specific modulations and frequencies are not publicly known, and may not have even been done because there's such a wide bandwidth. So we can't make definite answers, but a scientifically informed answer on where that tingling feeling comes from is that the microwave attacks, if that's what the source is probably stimulating nerves, both in your central nervous system and peripheral nerves, and just like electricity would stimulate those, giving rise to that sensation of being electrified. Yeah, and the sonics could probably mechanically give rise to that buzzing sensation that you would interpret as an electrified sensation.
Okay, let me ask you, do sonics create a percussion of sorts? Is that what they do?
Yes, they're a pressure wave.
Okay, thank you.
They're a pressure wave.
Yeah, okay, so when your ears feel like you're getting pressure, maybe
that's a pressure wave.
That's a pressure wave, okay, and that's probably a sonic attack of some kind, you think?
It could be. Right.
Remember when they outlawed jets being able to have, I think they called them sonic booms, when they would break the barrier of something. Remember that many years ago? Right. Probably most of you are too young to remember that. But when they used to boom, when they would go through the sound barrier around the pressure on the ears was extreme. And it would also shake glass and windows and, cause a lot of damage generally. So that's kind of the same idea, I would assume. Yeah, Mike?
Right.
Okay.
Well, it also depends on a couple other things, too, because anatomically, structure-wise, there's a lot of little muscles connected to your collarbone, your neck, and whatever that go from behind on the side of your neck to around your ear. Yeah. And if these things are being made to contract for whatever reason or tighten or loosen or whatever, there's also smaller muscles that are around your ear canal.
Yeah.
And possibly a wave of some kind, a vibration wave or pressure wave could go through that causes a momentary contraction of something near there that would make us seem like there's a popping of your ears or change in pressure. But it might be just some temporary muscular or cartilage contraction. That's hard to tell because we don't have any equipment. We don't have any way of accurately and regularly going from person to person. Oh. Yes, this one, no, this one. Yes, this one, no, this one.
Right. And it would be something you have to continually, wouldn't that be something we'd have to be attached to something continually to find out the difference?
Right. And I know the way, whenever I explain these things, I don't really apologize, but I'm trying to get people to realize that there's at least a couple different ways that we can misinterpret or be led to believe that something else is happening.
Yeah.
Just because we don't understand what's happening to us, and we read something that might have a partial truth in it or have no truth at all, but we've heard it from our friends and we've read it online.
Right.
No, and this happens to everyone. This happens to everyone because people are desperate to find the answers.
Right.
And we're trying to do, at least, when I say these type of things about get rid of 50% of the stuff that's talked about, it's not a slur against anyone. It's because we're wasting our time on 50% of it.
Yeah.
You're wasting hours and weeks and calls and gatherings, and no, don't do it.
We just need straightforward, condensed information, condensed. Get it nice and condensed and validated. Validated, I think, is our biggest issue, don't you think?
Right.
We need to validate what we're presenting.
Because not only do we have to try to get these things to work the same way pretty much across the board for each other within the community, we have to be able to show the people outside of the community who we go for help to some objective way, some outside way of showing that, yes, this is happening to us, and it's happening every time. And this is when this happens, this causes us to feel this way. Or this is what we consider an attack or a tactical attack, sonic or otherwise. Right.
Cause and effect. We need to make sure we don't. Cause and effect.
We can't just go on articles or abstracts or because or there might be patents. I know that that's helpful in some ways, but it really isn't, because then if no one has ever produced. We have never ourselves gotten together and put together any of these devices, even though I'm sure there's people around who can. And also that we're not even sure that just because we've read about them as patents and whatever, that they're even functional. Yeah. And a lot of the stranger things, the more edgy things technologically, aren't. We have to stop discussing those. Saying that they're secret and they're kept secret from us because we're targeted, and that's actually what's going on. We're just not allowed to know it isn't an answer.
Well, and the thing
that's not really an answer. That's just saying. That's just giving ourselves another reason to go off into another blind alley of a maze. It won't do you any good, and to go all the way out to that end wall and have to come back again to find another way takes 3 times as long.
Yeah. Yes, and we're so tired of that.
No.
I mean, as long as we can validate where we're coming from, and with really good sources like Edward Snowden, that's a really solid source from the inside.
And we've said this a few weeks. I know I've said this several weeks, off and on in my call or yours or whomever, to Matt or anybody.
Yeah.
And I know that, and I ask myself, why is it hard for us to get together and do these things, or myself or anyone? I do it to a daily degree, but not to the degree I'd like to, because I don't have the funds, I don't have the equipment, I don't have anything like that, or the help. I'm all by myself.
Yeah.
And half the time I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to go on what might be rational, sensible science.
Yeah.
It takes effort and it takes time. I know that people don't want to put the effort in, or they don't understand how, but we have to try and have a regular group of people that will do that, and more people that are willing to do that over a period of time. Because just coming on calls and talking and supporting one another, and I know that's very valuable. It's always helpful to people, but passing around information that won't be helpful, or keeping people in the same situation they were in a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago what's the point of that?
Yeah.
What's the point of that? So that's why we can continue to try and do some things like this, like we are tonight. Thanks, Linda.
You're welcome. Oh, I so want this. That's where I want this call to head towards. That we need to talk. It's like cloaking is a dandy idea, and I think there's some validity to it somewhere. But
our people, and the moderators, our people, and I'm not trying to put blame on anyone. I'm saying are the callers and the moderators willing to put aside a lot of, or a significant portion of what is discussed on a lot of these calls, simply because it's way too far out of our realm or anyone's realm to even begin to be able to prove that this is what's happening to us. Scalar wave technology, DNA resonance, remote viewing, lots of different things that even remote viewing, in my case, I've experienced something that tries to pretend that it's remote viewing or synthetic telepathy, etc. These things can be explained in a different way, where people, if you have an understanding of what's going on, you realize it's a trick that's being done to you, but it's being done backwards. I know that's not an explanation at the moment, but a lot of these things we can't be discussing. DNA doesn't have to be sampled in a secret way, as people take blood samples or urine samples from you. Ask Matt, your DNA falls off of you if you scratch your arm or scratch your head, or it's in your skin flakes in your clothing. It's everywhere you go. There's no reason for people to have to go and get your DNA sample.
Oh, you're right.
And it's everywhere.
In fact, that's how the police decide often to identify the criminal who was in your house, because they left DNA.
There's no reason for them to have to try to get you for a blood test or this kind of exam or take snippets or anything. Your DNA falls off of you, if you walk across the room.
That's brilliant. Now see, that's so simple. You can go get a.
But no one wants to believe it. No one wants to accept the fact that something else is happening, and that you can forget about that. Forget about that part. Forget about DNA resonance. I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends in TI community also believe that. And I don't want them to go into blind alleys. I'm not trying to make them feel uncomfortable or whatever. Yeah. I'm trying to help them get to the end, get to some relief faster. By saying, don't think about that. Leave it alone. Don't think about scalar wave. Don't think about the need for a super helium cool jacketing thing or something or other that we have to. No, that's never going to happen. So leave it alone.
Well, and where is that going to take us? it might be a nice thing down the road if something is cooling helium, whatever, and you can use it as a protection. But right now, what we need is to prove what we've got right now.
And something as simple as I'm going to shut up after this because I don't.
No,
we're
I like to hear you.
No, we're already off. We're already off track.
No, we're not.
If something as simple as a little battery-powered TENS unit, TENS, that a lot of people use to relieve back pain or muscle pain or whatever else, that you put those little sticky pads on and the wires and you dial it up and down. If you know where to put those different things on your muscles at the two opposite endpoints, and you know how to do it right, you can cause your own muscle contractions absolutely against your will in any of your muscle groups. Absolutely against your will, and that's showing you right there that it's not nearly as complicated as we'd like to think it is.
Whoa.
You know, and it's just a little AA or whatever that is, AAA batteries or something.
Well, you just put those little pads on you, and you can create a muscle spasm through an electrical force.
And people have to consider, or they don't have to consider, I'm sorry.
You're so right.
Try to consider that more mundane, more everyday sources of what we are interpreting as more complicated things may be happening. Vehicular traffic, cars and trucks and everything are very electromagnetically interfering, and they're also electromagnetically active. When they go through any neighborhood, there's a lot of traffic or there's regular traffic. They go a certain way at a certain height, a certain speed, a certain time. Who knows if the vibrations and the resonance and whatever can help send electrical disturbances through our own bodies simply because we live in a cube of 60 hertz wiring in every room that we go through. I don't know how any things are done, but I'm just showing you very simple things that can happen.
Well, the interesting thing is somebody in the chat room right now is talking about the fact that his symptoms are quite similar to a TENS what you feel from a TENS.
Of course they are, because your muscles, we all have the same. We all have muscles that have what's called an origin and insertion pointed out, opposite ends where your muscles connect your bones or whatever. If you stimulate those with a little bit, just a little current, they're going to contract or they'll relax or do whatever. So it doesn't take much, is what I'm saying. It doesn't take much for any of this. And if you think how little current comes out of your brain when it has to be recorded, there's a lot of different ways that we can be disturbed. We're just not. We haven't gotten to them yet because we're so busy looking at the real, the real strange ones and the real out there ones, because it has to be so complicated because it's on and on and on. It has to be a big high-tech program. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
If it was such a big, powerful, high-tech program, they wouldn't have to use all these strangers in every town or state you go in to do this street nonsense and covert home entries and all this other trickery. They wouldn't need to stress you out by doing all these things to try to reinforce you to behave, to be quiet.
If they could force your brain to think a certain thing, then...
So go ahead, let's keep going. I'm trying to...
I'd like to. I think of it that way too. It's kind of my working approach is that if they could achieve the really exotic claimed effects like reading our minds, etc., basically reading our minds, and all the things that are contained under that heading, then the war would already be over. We wouldn't even be fighting. That's kind of how I look at it. Right. We would all be laying.
There's no call. Right.
We'd be hooked up to the Matrix, laying in slime, being fed through tubes, and in a computer already. It would already be over. So
when I go on a call, why do they have to make more noise outside or do things when I come back into town? Or why do people have to go around outside in the warm night and shout things out on the street? Kids or adults or whoever the hell they are, I don't care. Because it's a factor in trying to trigger a person. It's a factor in trying to use part of the lowest tech tactics that they have learned to do or been taught to do.
Another thing that's I think relevant is that those really exotic claimed effects, emphasis on the word claimed, when the culture in the victim community, the TI community, starts to develop that we're all echoing those claimed effects, that actually plays right into the perp's strategy, because at the bottom line, this is a campaign of terror. It's based on terror
and misinformation.
Right. And so those are terrifying things to think about, and I think those actually embolden and strengthen the perpetrators and harm the victims, because they will prevent those non-corrupt police from wanting. I mean, they'll be listening to this too, and it frightens. The people in the general public are left with two options when they hear stuff like that: either dismissing it as ludicrous or delusional, or option two is being too frightened to do anything about it. So that's why I steer away from that. But I'd like to take this back to two things that you said, Mike. One was the demonstration unit. That is such a good idea, and I think as this issue starts to go more and more public and more mainstream, we will see someone do that. An excellent demonstration unit would be a pulsed radio frequency generator and a vertical thin concrete slab, and then you could get people to stand on the other side of it, and you could induce these jolts of pain, V2K, and the muscle contractions. That would be incredibly convincing, and based on publicly available literature, that should be completely doable. That should be achievable, as long as someone had the access to the right pulsed radio frequency generator and signal generating equipment, so you could change the modulation and everything. That's a great idea. I wish we could put something like that together, and I wish we could demonstrate it without getting arrested for whatever FCC violations or whatever.
Well,
but
let's see what we can do in that. We can talk when we talk during the week. We can talk about how to put something like that together, what it would take, what kind of money it would take. You know,
not much, and probably there probably wouldn't be an FCC issue because we're not broadcasting it. It's a low power system.
There we go.
Right.
We'll just do it and see how far we can do it. I'm up for it. I'm up for it. I mean, nobody's going to arrest us for. No, we're fine. We'll be fine.
I'm sort of joking, but I could just see that the corrupt, because these systems have infiltrated law enforcement to a certain degree and other government positions, and I could just see perps being so infuriated by that they would want to, in the most hypocritical tactic, they would want to press charges against us for demonstrating that. But anyway, that's sort of a joke. Another point that I'd like to make, two more points on this topic, and one is just in what I know about, again, publicly available published literature in science. We know that electromagnetic energy in the radio frequency band, I keep going back to that because in my view, I believe that most targeting is done that way, which includes microwaves. The non-thermal effects, bioeffects, this is published, there's a lot of literature on this, can be achieved at lower energies than the thermal effects. So in other words, our bodies are more sensitive to the non-thermal effects, which would be things like the induced muscle twitching. And I think there's a strong case to be made that all regulations on microwave energy in cell phones and other household things have been based on the thermal threshold, the threshold for avoiding warming of tissues to a certain level. And as Barry Trower discusses, and I think there's a strong case to be made that really the non-thermal effects have largely been ignored, and those can be achieved at much lower power levels. Now, the other comment I wanted to make is on when you talk about these effects that you listed at the outset, you gave a list of common TI complaints. The induced muscle effects, the trembling, the twitching, and I will add to that the effects on the heart,
shortness of breath, the effect on your diaphragm and your ability to breathe, all of those muscle effects, there's actually a huge amount of literature on the ability of pulsed radio frequency energy to induce muscle contractions. There's all kinds of literature. I'll just give you a couple examples. Surgeons use radio frequency energy for some of their surgical devices, and it's well known to a surgeon. If you're ever talking to a surgeon, you have to be careful when you're using these devices, and they know that when they're using these devices on a person, or if it's a veterinarian on an animal, as they're using these devices, the muscles around where they're cauterizing or cutting with these devices will start to ripple and contract, because the pulsed energy is inducing those muscle contractions. And there's all kinds of other examples. If you do magnetic stimulation on a limb, you can get the muscles to contract, and actually that's caused by inducing nerve activity, because the nerves have a lower threshold than the muscles, but the nerves are innervating the muscles, and then the nerves cause the muscles to contract. But there can also be direct effects on the muscles itself, and if you want to get technical about it, that's largely, probably not completely, but that's largely mediated by voltage-gated calcium channels, which are very rich in muscles, nerves, the heart, and the eyes. And that's what I think is the basis of some of these induced holographic effects that some of us have experienced.
There's a definite physical reason for that.
Well, the part about the eyes I added, the part about the eyes, there's no direct linkage. There's no papers that I've come across on radio frequency energy stimulating the eyes. That's just my I'm connecting the dots there as a possibility. That's a hypothesis, because the eyes work. The signal is transduced from the eyes to the optic nerve on the basis of voltage-gated calcium channels, which are known to be sensitive to microwave energy.
Well, okay. I want to say something. Somebody was objecting to, was saying that we are discrediting what TIs, a lot of valid TIs are feeling. I gather by simplifying things, we're not here to validate or invalidate anything. We're here to simplify, to make this a situation that can be presented for our benefit for people who can understand what we're trying to say and give us help. That's what we're here for, and that's what this call is going to be about from now on.
And you're not going to really help anyone by making it so terribly complicated that neither you or anyone else you ask for help will ever be able to find the answer for you.
They're going to glass over. Their eyes are going to glass over the minute you start.
But even if, not only that, but if you make it so complicated and say that a lot of this is secret, it'll never be released, we can't find that information, it's top secret, well, then you're saying what the hell's the point anyway? So just put up with it, because you won't have any way to get out of it. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I do understand the sentiment. So just to clarify, I understand the sentiment, because these signals have pervasive effects on the body, and we are far from having an understanding of how that works. The approach that I like to take, just because my training, I do have some relevant training, is I call it the bottom-up approach. And that is, I can go to the literature, and I can find a lot of relevant literature. I mean, we're talking thousands of papers that are in this realm, and you can start to put together pieces that start to explain some of this from the bottom up. And you can't get all the way to these intricate sensory and cognitive and neural effects. You can't get all the way, but you can get a lot of the way. And in some cases, you can get very close to explaining what certain effects are. So I call that the bottom-up approach. Yeah. And by taking the bottom-up approach, if I were to ever have this if I had this conversation with other scientists, or even in a courtroom at some point in the future, I'm safeguarding myself, because I'm not trying to explain everything, but I'm basically saying that there's a scientific basis for going a long way to explaining many of this suite of effects. Now, the alternative approach is the top-down approach, and that's where you start with the complex experience or a bioeffect, and you try to build a theory that explains it in full. And that's not defensible in a scientific or probably even a legal sense. I call that the top-down approach, and I think that's not a constructive way to do it. But I do understand, because we victims, we want to know that answer, so we sometimes leapfrog to thinking about the bottom, the top-down approach. But I just don't think that approach works very well. And
if you start with the most complicated without explaining the underpinnings or the bottom, or build the case, but law too, you got to build it up to explain it. You can't just throw a bunch of conclusions at people and say, get it? No, they need to understand it from the bottom up. That's so good. Yes, I hear you. I think I hear you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying just start with what's known and documented, and go as far as you can to explaining it. And then if you're going to go further than that, be very clear that it's just guesswork at that point. And the top-down approach has the disadvantage that any theory that anyone comes up with, I can come up with an equally flamboyant theory, and there's almost an infinite number of those, and so it's not useful. It's very difficult to work. The only way the top-down approach will work is if we get some big disclosure from the inside, and that's fine. I would welcome that, but that disclosure cannot be someone who comes forward and just tells a story, because we can't evaluate that. The disclosure has to be actual documentation, and which we have not. We haven't seen that yet. We just haven't seen that.
No, we haven't. And I agree. It needs to be a more. If an inside story is a personal one of hands-on, that's one thing. But just knowing the story is another. Am I making sense?
You are. Let me just say one more thing on this topic, and that is, I think the bottom-up approach, given the syndrome, I like to say like a suite of bioeffects or the syndrome of effects, I always try to encourage TIs if they have to go to the doctor or if they're talking about this, make sure you talk about the suite of effects that has that rapid onset and rapid offset. Don't just focus on one effect, because from a bird's eye view, the suite of effects is very suggestive of directed energy, and just saying that those symptoms are correlated with each other already is suggestive of that, and we know that by this bottom-up approach, we have a reason for putting things like the muscle twitching, even the V2K, the stings, the burning, the lesions on the body. That the part that I said about vision has to remain speculative at this point. That's just an educated guess, so I'm not including that. But I hope that makes sense. I think if someone were patient enough to listen and had the scientific training and really, this will be argued in courts and stuff, and that bottom-up approach builds a pretty good case for electronic harassment being plausible and supported by our allegations.
And if you start from the simplistic aspect of it and build into the complicated, then somebody can walk with you and take those steps with you and understand. Yeah.
Yeah, if they choose to unbury their head from the sand.
Right, which we're trying to get them to do by explaining it simplistically. Or, we'll explain it real simply so you guys can understand, and then we'll lead it to the more complicated so you really understand what the rest of the people are going through. But right now we're trying to kind of simplify things to get this on the ground going, yeah?
The demonstration unit would really help. I wish we had a benefactor who could come forward and, man, we could go demonstrate that to police officers. We could go to the county fair. We could demonstrate it to school children. We could get everyone to know what it's like to be covertly harassed right through a wall. Like that would be amazing.
Wow. Well, let's all talk about it and see what we need to come up with, okay? I don't know how much it would cost, but I'm pretty good at raising money. We'll see. And we can do something, you know? And Terry is looking for someone to help him write a grant. Somebody pointed out you're going to ask the government for money to figure out what they're doing to us. I'm not sure that that's the actual situation, but I think Terry's got a good idea. If he writes a grant and we start collecting money, maybe we can. And the more simply we can present this, the more reasonably we can present this, so that they understand, because who would understand this? I wouldn't understand it unless I'd experienced it. If somebody was running around and saying, I couldn't walk for 3 weeks because my knees were getting hit by electromagnetic frequencies, I probably would have said, okay. But I've experienced it, so I know it's happening. But we need to present it in such a simple way to these people so that they can get on board and help us. We'll do it.
I'd like to go to all the top end engineering schools and go to their electrical engineering departments and pitch the idea to the undergraduates for their projects or the graduate students to develop electronic harassment demonstration unit. I mean, because college students would be so into that idea.
Yeah, they love it. Yeah. That's really interesting. Well, you never know. We can put a program together. We can do this. This is good.
But again, I want to say, for example, if there was such a really hardcore, set in stone system in place to do all these things to us electronically, that was so fine-tuned. Today I went to go visit some friends, and I went to a farmer's market in another town, and I passed through a couple other towns on a bus, country bus, as it was. Now, all along the way, people, and I'm sure everybody on this call has had the same thing. I've had people that were total strangers to me in several different towns in 2 different counties, even UPS people, or what's the other thing called, FedEx, or I don't know, ambulance people and whatever, in 2 counties in several different towns. As I drove by, they seemed to be all in place and ready to give the certain types of gestures and whatever. That's pretty extensive, and for people who have moved a lot or moved a great distance or lived several different towns or states, that's pretty extensive.
Yeah. They were ready for me. They were ready for me when I moved.
Something that, and I can walk through, and I'll have to start doing this, walk through the area here and show how people try to coordinate these things with each other as I walk down the street or walk with Sophie.
Yeah.
And do whatever. Now, there wouldn't be a need for something like this if the electronic aspects of it and the pseudo-hypnotic, whatever you kind of want to call it, V2K type things were that good or even as real as we talk about them being. There wouldn't need to be that kind of a system. Yeah. That stuff is so out there. It's necessary. It's still necessary to this day for people to do that, to keep everyone in a flustered, in a state of flux, in a state of being confused, misinformed, and ungrounded.
Intimidated and fearful, all that stuff.
Mistrustful, paranoid, yada, yada, yada. Right.
Yeah. Well,
I get your point. I think it's a valid point. At the same time, there's a counterpoint, and maybe addressing that earlier comment from that caller is that these in terms of the participants in these programs, it's vast, and so we are up against something that's already developed culturally into something quite big and quite dangerous. So I don't think what we're trying to do here at all is to minimize the danger of that.
No, not at all. And right, and along with going along with that, what I call V2K or neighbor 2K or any kind of 2K you want or non-2K, I don't know what to call it at the time, depending on my state of mind, which is that a state of perception or misperception.
Yeah.
They continued right into while I was on the first leg of the country bus trip up to meet a friend of mine who was going to drive me the rest of the way to the market town. Huh? After that, there was very little. I don't know why that was for being on that bus. If it was something that was carried within the bus or some vicinity that I still stayed within, or what. But it changes from place to place over a short period of time. it doesn't go away, but it changes for whatever reason.
That's interesting.
Something's there. Something's there, and we have to find out what it is, or try and find out what, and try to, put together something that simulates it on our own. Find out what else it is not. And I keep saying this, and I know it's a long effort in a way, but if many people do it, it won't be not nearly as long, and we'll get there a lot faster. There's a lot of smart people in this group.
Oh, we're going to move. We're going to move. I love the idea of putting together these machines that can demonstrate this. I love that. We'll figure that out. We'll talk about that. Okay.
I mean, we really deserve big help from relevant institutions. This is a big problem, and it's atrocious that we're not getting the help that we need. But I think what you're trying to say, Mike, is that you have these personal indicators in your situation that the systems that are used against us have their own limitations, and sometimes you see that in your day-to-day, how it changes from place to place. And so I guess we should be encouraged by that the systems are not as big and scary as the perps would like us to think they are.
I agree with Mike. I mean, because they physically have to tell each other kind of what's going on so that they can follow us. Is that what you mean, Mike? I blanked out there for a minute.
No, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Why would they be following us? Why would they be following us to the store when we're told by our artificial intelligence to go buy peanut butter and then follow us a car in front, a car on the side, a car in back? If they know right where we're going, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Why are they following us all over the place if they know where we are all the time? Yeah.
Right. That I think that's the point.
Okay. Did we lose Mike? Mike, did you drop off?
Maybe just for a second. That's okay.
Okay. Yeah. No, and again, I want to go back to you guys. We're not trying to minimize anything. Only the confusion. Only the confusion. Get sort of a solid platform and present it without anything that would make somebody go, "What?" Trying to stay away from that so that people can follow us, understand us, and have compassion for us, because we want them to know how difficult this is for us and how awful it is. I mean, I've been hospitalized 3 times. I've been attacked. I have been really hit by targeting. I've had various physical ailments because of it, and they're not something that can be cured. And, we're not trying to minimize it. I know how awful this is. I get hit a lot, and I have been getting hit since 1993. There's nothing about this call that we're trying to say, oh, it doesn't matter. Of course it matters. We just want to present this in a way that they'll be able to get it. You can't teach trigonometry until you teach the lower grades in math, So
yeah, it's kind of a it's a really tricky situation because we're trying to present it in a way that's more evidence-based, and at the same time, we're also trying to convey how absolutely dangerous and destructive this activity is. And so those two things, maybe that's also why people tend to gravitate towards the bigger explanations, because it is a big problem. So it's a tricky art form. It is it's not easy. This navigating this. We are in a tricky position, given that the government is not helping us with this atrocious situation. But I think there is room for us to improve navigating that tricky zone in trying to bring awareness to this.
Mm-hmm. And and the really painful, the very destructive things that are happening to us, those aren't going to go away. And nobody's going to ignore them. It's just, for right now, presenting the more simplistic areas will fly better. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, what we're trying to get here is the public awareness that will sort of motivate and force the relevant institutions to actually start taking this seriously, which will alleviate part of the tragedy, which is us being called crazy. But once this is in that second phase where people are taking it seriously, there's a whole there's another challenge that's huge, and that is actually going after these guys. These are still covert crimes that don't leave a lot of forensic evidence, but we'll score a huge victory when we can actually start going to law enforcement. And another comment that I have that you just made me think of is one thing that I say, I'm not sure how effective it is, but it seems to be effective, and that is how can law enforcement even begin to take this seriously unless they start listening to the claims of the victims, which will help identify where the hotspots of this activity are. I mean, that's something that I say too. It's like this is really important. Just law enforcement should be taking these claims seriously, because that's the data that will help them with that second huge challenge of going after this, like the massive international organized crime that it is.
Yeah. And once it's presented so it's believable and they're beginning to grab onto this, we will have more power, much more power behind it. They will not.
I think so.
Well, they won't be able to ridicule us into supposedly being crazy. They just won't. We'll have actual, verified, validated proof out there, and then we can.
The biggest power that we'll have.
Huh?
I think the biggest power that we'll have will be a more general awareness of this issue. Will bring the massive power of public support, because the general public, I think one of the reasons that people in the general public don't want to even think about this issue is because of how scary it is. But if they can be brought on board and convinced, I mean, the majority of people in society will not accept that this is going on in society. It is far too destructive, and it poses threat. It actually poses a threat just to the sanctity of the rule of law. Yeah. I mean, is this a loophole? So are we saying that law can handle all crimes except electronic harassment, and the system of law enforcement can't touch that? Well, if that's the attitude for this, then you're actually creating a loophole that criminals are just going to gravitate towards, because every organized crime group would love to have its strong arm, its coercive tactic being something that law enforcement won't touch. So once people get on board with the magnitude of this problem, I think this is not acceptable. This is a threat to safety, human rights, and even just respect for the law is all at stake. And we will be more powerful. It won't be us. It won't be we victims versus the criminals. It will be the might of society's views and society's desires and what they want against these criminals. And I think society far outnumbers these criminals. It's just that they don't know about this problem.
Yes, and when they also once the law cannot ignore us, I think they'll feel a little safer. Maybe that this is not just some wild ass thing going on out there with a bunch of mafia types. That we do have a little bit of power behind us. They are getting on board. Hopefully the authorities will get on board to some degree. Because I don't think it's the authorities that are doing all this. Some of them, yeah, but not all of them.
Right.
I think that would be good. Is Mike still with us?
Well,
where'd Mike go?
Yes,
the whole idea,
Go ahead.
The whole idea of the psychotronic development is to circumvent the court system, and they're creating a shadow government, a technical shadow government. Here, I have a lot of the journals from the scientists inventing mind control, and here's what they say: within the last 2 decades, a potential has emerged which was improbable but now is feasible This potential is the technical capability to influence the major portion of the approximately 6 billion brains of the human species. This was in 1973. The 6 billion brains of the human species without meditation through classical sensory modalities by generating neural information within the physical medium which all members of the species are immersed.
Okay.
You're talking about
that doesn't mean that it's being done, and B, if it's being done on a widespread scale, most likely it would be able to be detected.
No, I believe they're using secret modulation techniques.
Dave, Mike points out all the time to me.
We can do this all night and until all for the next year about secret this and that. It can't be that secret because if it's going out to everyone, we should be able to find it if we have our own equipment. We should be able to find it some way. And if it's secret modulation, then what you're trying to say to people is you might as well forget it if it's so secret. You spend the next
No, it's Tesla. It's called constructive interference or time variant wave propagation. It's a way to send energy long distance without loss, and you can only detect it at the target, which would be in the brain. You can't stick your meter in the brain.
Okay, but wouldn't that be like
I don't even know if that's a valid method that's being used. You can't just read that and say that it's being done. We don't know that. Just because you read it and you found it, like I found things like that, doesn't mean that it's actually what's being done, or it can be done. It's just someone saying that in the next few years this might be or will be or will try to be. That doesn't mean that that's happening. We have to be able to say to each other, we're finding ways that we are finding signs that it might be being done this particular way, or we are not finding anything in this area, so we can forget about that particular method. No one is doing that. We are just passing around, again, echoing articles back and forth, links and hyperlinks. That doesn't do anything for anyone. That just amps people up about, oh yes, it's got to be that because there's so and so said it. I'm not putting you down, so I don't even know what I'm talking about.
That's Dave.
Oh, sorry. And it's just that, and he's a good. Look at how much he does for people.
Yeah. Oh no, he's very smart. But let me just point out what you say to me, Mike. Like Mike says, if they were really controlling your brain, we wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be calling the calls. We wouldn't be able to call if they were actually controlling me. Now, I'm not saying that they don't try. I think that the fear I wake up has something to do with the tinnitus that I hear all night long, and I think there's
and whatever you pass out to people, which is a great, a really altruistic, a great service to people to do all that stuff on your own, research it, and then pass it out for nothing. Is amazing, and you're one of the few people who's ever done it. And,
I'm just trying to help people, and I have a degree in electronic engineering, and I would like to present my information and ideas that hopefully other engineers might be able to think of things that could help other TIs also.
And what I want to know is, though, for some reason, when people listen to the tinnitus CD version 1 or 2, whatever, it's doing something else that we don't take into consideration. It's doing something as far as, I know what you're saying. I don't really want to get into it. I'll have to talk to you on the side, but it's doing something else that I'm curious about, and I have to talk with you about on the side. I didn't recognize your voice. I haven't talked to you enough, Dave. So I'm sorry about that. But what was I going to say? I know that you especially, and there's got to be a few others. Look at you. Is there any possible way that you, and either yourself or a few other people, can access the supposedly easy-to-access patents and schematics for the neurophone or V2K and whatever, and put together a viable unit?
You saying can I build mind control? Is that
no? Okay. When people are talking, I'm talking about V2K, which whatever the patents are there, or any of them, the neurophone, the V2K, the Frey effect. I'm not saying it's a mind control thing because our minds are not controlled. My mind isn't controlled because I'm speaking out against you.
I'm using that in general term, but so V2K machine. What you have a device, don't you?
No, that's just a simulation. That's just a simulation using something else, and
it works at a distance.
It works at a distance, but it's a very low-powered one, and it's blocked with your hand.
Right. We really want is something that can go through walls.
Right, and something that's less, not only that, but less cumbersome and more easily administered through, I don't know, I'm going to guess existing infrastructure, maybe 60 hertz household wiring or so. I don't really know how. But I'm asking you because that's why, because I don't know how to say it, and I don't know what it is. But
yeah, but see, I'm focusing on countermeasures, and I believe that's this is my own opinion. I don't want to go down that road because of liability. There's lots of issues when you go testing stuff on people.
Oh, you don't have. Okay, that's okay.
I'm doing.
That's okay, Mike. And
yeah,
and
I would absolutely give you total clearance to do it out of me. Absolutely, anytime. I've had a friend of mine who's a former physics professor at Cornell come down, and we've done a whole year of pulsed electromagnetic fields to my brain that he's developed in a fairly strong field, trying to simulate something akin to homemade RTMS. And so far, nothing's happened. Although Sophie doesn't think so. She'll tell you otherwise.
What's RTMS?
Repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation.
Oh, okay. Kind of like a home unit, basically.
Kind of, but it's not an easy thing because the units that they use in clinical trials are 1.2 Tesla. That's not something you can have at home. 1.25 Tesla, 1.35 Tesla strength. That's a lot of Teslas, miss. Or sir.
Well, you totally lost me. But no, Dave, you're not. Nobody wants to make you do anything. You are doing such amazing things right now.
A great legacy for everybody that you've helped. Absolutely. I'm asking you because I don't have the wherewithal. I know you're in countermeasures, right? I'm not trying to divert you at all. But isn't there anyone else that you might know of that you can't talk with regularly that's similar to you that they might be interested in putting something like that together? Only because we have nothing to show anyone. We have nothing to show ourselves. Just articles. Just postulation.
Well, see, you hit on a basic problem. There are no good engineers except that are working for the government.
Oh, we'll find them.
It's hard to get technical people. It's hard to get technical people to help TIs.
Not to worry. We'll do it, Dave. Not to worry. We're gonna play with this putting this thing together one way or the other. We're gonna get the money. And we're going to do it, and we can demonstrate. We mean to move forward, no matter what.
And I want to know I know several friends of mine, who really appreciate the fact that you have put all that effort and research and your own time and money into all that because it's really helped them a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, Dave, you have helped me.
Yeah.
You have helped so many people with what you've done. You are priceless to us. You are really.
So keep going, sir.
Yeah, please don't stop. We need you, Dave.
Nothing personal. Just keep doing what you trying different things. That's what we need, and we need 25 more of you as well. 25 more people around the country.
No, we think the world of you, and just don't go away. My God.
No, not at all. That's and so I'm hoping other people are listening that will come and try.
Yeah. We'll travel around the country.
Yeah, everybody on the calls.
Yeah.
Everybody on the calls has their own abilities and talents, and that's how we make it, is getting together. And, some people are good at activism. Mm-hmm. Some people are good at electronics. And working together is how we're going to overcome this,
And that's one of the things that we're trying to do on this call is kind of streamline things so we can work together in a forward motion. Always keep moving forward, and build on what we know. As Matthew pointed out, build from the simple to the complicated, so that we can actually build a case,
Let me jump in for a second, if you don't mind. Even from this bottom-up approach, it is abundantly clear that these types of signals have the capability of remotely influencing the nervous system. There is no, and so that is an important point to keep in mind. And I'm not a proponent of what you could call strict mind control, but I am definitely a believer in what you might call weaker forms of mind control, many of which might be mediated by classical and operant conditioning using these signals and the organized stalking tactics. That's obviously what you might call an advanced topic to introduce someone outside of the TI community to. But at the same time, it's that delicate area too, because it is important for us to remember, and as this comes out, to make it very clear how dangerous these technologies are, because they do have the ability to influence people's mind. But I just think that the perpetrators don't have an advanced capability in that regard as our experiences might sometimes suggest. The experiences are terrifying, but I don't think they're necessarily under the they're like random effects more so than intended effects by the perpetrators, if that makes sense. But the point that I'm trying to make is that it is important for us and for the general public to realize that these remote brain influencing technologies are very dangerous. It's just that's I think it's pretty clear that that's not a good lead-in to getting exposure, but definitely something that we'll need to dig into with the full weight of the government behind us. I'm talking about the non-corrupted government once we get them off their lazy butts to help us. But this is a very serious issue, and so articles like the one that you just mentioned, Dave, those are written because the capability and the possibilities in some respect along those lines are there, and there's already a reason to make those conclusions. I hope I'm making myself clear. It's part of the situation. It's an important part, but I think it might get overblown to a certain extent as well.
Well, that was 1973, and you can only imagine how technology has advanced since then. So, as an engineer, I absolutely believe that there's stuff that we can't even comprehend that they're using right now.
Well,
That's probably true, but as a neuroscientist, I also know that there are strict limitations on what is possible in terms of remote mind control. And, or even mind control with up close, but that's the perspective of a neuroscientist that not everything is possible when it comes to precise control of the mind, and certainly when it comes to reading signals out of a person's mind. Neuroscience doesn't even understand how the mind works at all at this point.
Yeah, but in covert experimentation, they can advance very, very quickly, and without access to national security information, we can only go by what's in the public. And tradition shows that when something comes out in public, they've already had it for 40 years. So I'm just saying there's a very good chance we're 40 years behind everything we're talking about right now.
Okay, well, we have to start somewhere.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. But since our big challenge right now is basically interfacing with the public, I think that those arguments don't really help us too much. Not arguments. I mean that unknown. That's what I would put in the category of the unknown. And since all we can do is speculate on it, it doesn't really help us with our immediate need of the activism we're trying to do.
Right.
That makes sense.
And there are things in place that are, I'm sure, being used by sites like Facebook, because it's become so popular and so all-seeing, not all-knowing, but all-seeing a lot of times, that uses some components that try to influence us. So, targeted advertising. How many people have bought, not on impulse, but almost on impulse, things that we really don't need, and then find out we don't want, or can't send back, on and on and on. There's influence going on through advertising, and I think through other means that we are just not aware of because we can't perceive them. In the form of one of the forms may be the fact that our computers now can send out ultrasound signals to devices in the room, find out if we're there, if our phones are activated, what we're looking at on screens, different things like that, all without our knowing it. To open microphones, close microphones, open cameras, do whatever, because we can't perceive ultrasound. And to have a decent ultrasound mic, I'm sure Dave and Matt know that decent ultrasound mics aren't just built into your phone, your phone microphone, or in your computer. You actually, for a decent ultrasound detection, you have to buy special ultrasound mics. So most people don't have those in their homes to realize that that's happening even. And I think that a combination of things like that is at least being put in place to try and influence us at first through economics, and to see what happens. So we don't really know, but I know that there's so many ways that we cannot tell that we're being affected, because even though they're not real high tech, we just can't perceive them. We don't know what kind of subliminal things are being sent out, or ultrasound signals, lots of different things.
Dave,
we might be 40 years behind. He might be right, but we still all have the same equipment. We still 40 years ago, and 40 years later, we still have the same physicality. We still have the same equipment. Our bodies, that are affected in the same ways by lots of different things. And because he's in countermeasures, even if we don't know exactly what we're affected by, as he's pointing out, we can try and find things that will give us at least some coverage, and find out other things that will give us more and more coverage as far as countering it as we go along.
I like that line of reasoning. Basically, let me restate it in a way that I'm kind of hearing it. There's good reason to believe that electronic harassment has been going on for, I don't know, 30 years maybe? Can we say it? Is that reasonable? Whatever the number is.
Sure.
There's some TIs that are credible that talk about similar electronic harassment from decades ago, and the reports on what is happening to victims has not progressed as far as basically TIs will say that similar stuff was happening 30 years ago. So maybe even though the secret technology is advancing, they are up against certain limitations on what is possible in terms of remote influence of the human brain. Certainly there's some, but I don't know. I hadn't really thought about that line of reasoning that you just articulated, Mike, and I think that's interesting. I want to keep that one in my back pocket.
Okay. We are moving along here. Okay, we want to go into the issue of heart racing, nausea, sweating, shortness of breath, all of that. Do we have anything we want to talk about with that? Matt?
Well, I just said that put me in front of a medical doctor who's interested in this, and I will rapidly, and I'm sure surgeons and other people in the biomedical industry know that there's a huge amount of knowledge out there on effects of pulsed radio frequency on muscle systems and their associated nerves. So that's all fairly well substantiated.
Yeah, that's part of what we that is part of this, absolutely. Then, yeah, and it's substantiated, and it's medically substantiated. Yeah.
Well, I would say that the muscle trembling and associated effects like effects on your heart and the feeling of gasping for air, and I've had attacks that were so bad that I basically went into uncontrolled wild movements that I could only fairly describe as like seizure-like activity. Yeah. And then other attacks that essentially almost caused like a paralysis, like an inability to move, which was so shocking that I felt like I was going to die, and that was accompanied by severe nausea. And I don't know the specifics on that, but in general, there's a body of knowledge that would support plausible explanations for how that is done by radio frequency energy, high energy radio frequency.
Whoa. I'm beginning to be able to form some sort of like an index in how we can arrange this, and it would be with testimonies, obviously, from people who have these experiences, along with the absolute uncontrovertible validation by like medical records or medical data indicating that this is absolutely a result of these frequencies, or what this is about. Yeah? This is good.
I think TIs also have the ability to sometimes, in some cases, to document these the co-occurrence of these energy sources using their tri-field meters and whatnot to a certain extent also.
Yeah, I've got one, and I run around testing, and some areas test very high. Even by the power company, they come out and test it too. I just want to also tell people that, by the way, the power company, most of these power companies in your cities have a department that will come out and check the electromagnetic frequencies in your living area. And outside, they check your entrance. That's interesting. They check your entrance way. I should have watched him more carefully, the areas that he tested. But anyway, most cities do have a group, and the power company will come out and test that for you. You got to push them a little bit. They don't like it, but they'll do it. Damn it, I had a whole list of things I wanted to address tonight, and I talked to him about it with Terry. When I unmute you, please tell me what we talked about. Okay, also the burns, burst capillaries, hair loss. That's pretty much the frequency. That's radiation, isn't it?
Well, I think from a medical perspective, the problem with those effects, I don't like to use the word symptoms, but those effects is if you, I mean, I had some lesions, I called them dermal lesions, on my body that were visible for up to 24 to 48 hours sometimes after these different assaults. And if you go to a dermatologist, the practical problem is, sure, those effects are consistent with different kinds of what we call electronic attacks, but they can also be caused by other things as well. So what I would love to see is sometimes these let's call them burns or different kinds of lesions, if people could try to start videotaping them as they happen, that would sometimes that might be useful. But they are consistent. The correct terminology is that you can find literature, and again, this is also a pretty large body of publicly available literature, which is what we have to work with, not the classified stuff. Right. That you can say that the correct terminology is that those effects are consistent with microwave and other electromagnetic attacks of sufficiently high power.
Yes, and when we can start putting together the number of people that have the certain symptoms, which I also think is being done by, maybe we can just take information from what is being collected right now, we can, sort of hone in on the fact that, 2,000 TIs have hair loss and whatever, but we can kind of lump the numbers in. I don't know what I mean, but you know what I mean, I think.
Well, I think that's the logic that would happen in the legal arena going forward. Yeah. And what you would basically use is the argumentation would be, I'm not speaking as a lawyer, I'm speaking as a scientist.
Right.
But the argumentation would basically be clusters of people, that's right. One, right. If you have clusters of people, and then it would be correlated in time suites of different effects. And then the argumentation would be, okay, let's examine the possibilities for how all of these effects happened in all of these people who also claimed these experiences, and then if electronic harassment were more recognized, then you build a case where actually electronic harassment in its different forms, in one of its forms, becomes the most plausible explanation for that. Not even just an explanation, but it becomes the most plausible. But the crimes are difficult, and so additional evidence would also be needed. But this is definitely would be part of the strategy. So I think you're correct. But the correct terminology or the correct way to think of it are effects that are consistent with those kinds of attacks. But if you get enough of those effects, then you start to say, okay, what are the other possible explanations? And now other explanations become less likely than electronic harassment. That's, I guess, the thinking going forward. But these effects and documenting these effects in journals, and to what extent you can document them in photographs. They are hard to document in photographs. And your EMF readings, that's all part of the puzzle, or part of the strategy of building a case for this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and as Mike always says, photographs don't lie. Well, usually. Then again, there's Photoshop. But if you take, it's better proof if you get photographs. And actually, when they start hitting me on my arms, I can see the skin raise up, and I can see the blood forming. I mean, you can see it in creation. You can actually watch them while they're damaging the area. And maybe
that's where I said that, and we're not talking cell phones, but higher quality recordings. But that's where the video recording becomes very useful, because I've seen during my targeting, I saw cases where even people that were around me, bystanders, I could see these beams, if you will, these pencil-thin beams zip across their face, and I could see these subtle lesions actually form on their face. And I said, "You're getting hit right now. Don't you feel it? You're getting hit right now." And the person just looked at.
Yeah.
No, well, they don't know what's going on, so they just looked at me with a scared look on their face.
Oh wow. Yeah. Wow. Just a minute. I'm putting my puppy out so she doesn't.
Or another great one was when I was in a taxi, and I was heading back down to a hotel that I had booked, and I was under attack while I was in the taxi, and I was talking to the taxi driver, and I was looking in the mirror at the taxi driver's face, and I saw one of these things zip across his face, and it formed a line of inflammation, and then he was reaching up and rubbing his face. I didn't say anything to him at the time, but I was like, I can see you getting hit right now.
Wow.
I've seen many YouTube videos where victims are talking about this, and they have those characteristic, almost like sunburn patches on their face and stuff. So videotaping the formation of these things, the rapid formation, that becomes convincing, because it's I didn't just do that to my body psychosomatically. I didn't just will a small quarter-shaped patch on my face to get sunburned. I didn't. That's not how a red face from embarrassment doesn't just do that. On one little mark on your face.
On a splotch on the right side of your cheek. Yeah, very true. Hold on, I just got to take care of something. Got to shut the sliding glass door. Okay. Mike, are you still there?
Yeah. Yes, I'm right here.
Good.
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just reading through something. And
by the way, Mike has been really interested in forming this collection of information, and hopefully more people who will participate in this in order to get things going. Because Mike is very tired of all this, and I am, and I think all.
Not only tired of it. Tired is one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's been going on. All of you should be. Actually, all of you the same way. I let it go on way too long in my life, and one of the reasons is because I was involved with someone else who's now no longer living,
Right.
and it still went on. It went on for the other person also. These
Yeah.
people are just going to continue in their along their way, thinking this is all well and good. And isn't this fun? And it's great sport, and we can just fuck with anybody and ruin their lives.
Yeah.
And keep doing this to everyone.
Yeah.
Without fear of any kind of whatever you call it, discovery or punishment. That we can't keep doing this like this.
No, we can't.
Can't keep doing this. Small towns and big people just to call in the calls and say, well, they're doing this to me, and I think this is happening. This is happening. I tried this. I tried that.
Yeah.
That's going on too long, and we have to try to pick things up here, pick some momentum up.
I frankly think that maybe it would be a good idea to have an early call and a later call. An earlier call for people who are new and don't know what's going on, because they need to know that they're not alone. And then
talk through the free forum or the other free forum. There's if people want to talk about specifically DNA resonance or I don't know, whatever they that's their thing, and we cannot budge them from it. And they don't want to give that up or do whatever. It's nothing against them. I don't have anything against them, but it's not something that we really can spend any more time on. I don't mean to pick on that particular thing, and I think that people should consider getting to something like this if they're willing to let go of a lot of the things that they were previously misled to believe. Misled is the word.
Yeah.
Misled.
Yeah.
Well, one small contribution that I'm going to make. It's not that big of a deal, but it may help some people. Is that at the TI conference, I'm going to present there, and I'm going to give a presentation there that does follow this sort of like biomedical outside the TI community bottom up approach. My presentation is going to be it's not going to be aimed for TIs. It's going to be designed as if I were presenting to non-TIs. But in my, I don't have tons of time to do this, but I have done fairly extensive literature review, and I'm going to catalog the best papers that I find into different categories of basically the categories that we've just gone through, and I'm going to organize something like the 50 best peer-reviewed publications, and I'm going to bring those on USB drives and hand those out there so
Beautiful.
that
Man, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean there are some classic papers, like one of my favorite papers is the 1967 paper published in Nature, which is the most prestigious journal, science journal in the world, where they radiated chickens to see the effects of these microwave signals, and they got they paralyzed the chickens and caused them to fall down, flapping on the, and it's just like non-thermal effects on their muscular system.
Wow.
And there's there's other psychiatric papers that discuss the psychiatric effects of these things, and so I've cataloged these into different like subfolders, like lesions and burns, or muscular effects, heart effects, psychiatric effects, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But at least that's like a core for the bottom-up approach, where if you ever did come across like a biomedical professional who was interested in this but didn't know, you could say, well, here's a library of papers that organized by the different kinds of effects. And the people in DARPA would probably laugh at that, but the advantage of that is that that's all publicly available, peer-reviewed literature I don't have access to the DARPA literature.
Right. They laugh all they want.
but even with that literature, you go a good ways towards explaining V2K and other things, which are the common complaints of TIs. So another comment that I have, and then I'll relinquish the floor.
No.
You're absolutely right that this problem is not going to go away. This is actually going to become a crime. It's just like rape has been around forever. Electronic harassment will be around forever after this. I don't think it's going away. People will try to get away with it and use it. It's essentially like a new firearm, a non-lethal firearm, which is nearly as effective. And what we're going to see are countermeasures, Dave has a useful countermeasure, but I'm talking about more like on a social level countermeasures.
Yeah.
And I mean, the future that we have in store for us is going to be changed building codes, where building codes are designed with better shielding in the walls.
Yeah.
And one thing I predict, actually two things I predict to see in the dystopian future tainted by electronic harassment. One is going to be sensor arrays. I mean, it'd be very useful if just like we have security cameras everywhere. Well, EMF and ultrasonic sensors arrayed around would easily localize the source of these things. And then I also predict just like we see like emergency police phones, or like I think there will be like shielded shelters that people can along the street, like bus stops that you can run into, and they're outfitted with sensor arrays and high-end shielding and stuff. So I don't know exactly what the specifics are, but basically when this comes out, I think the response is going to be society cannot function with this kind of crime, and once we get society on board, there's going to be dramatic responses.
And
we're not there.
There's another thing that just let me add. This is a money industry that could grow up very quickly, and as long as there's money in it, people will get involved. There's a lot of money in their stuff, what they're doing to us, but if we have an industry, it's like a cottage industry that would explode in shielding type. But what you're talking about, to identify this stuff, that's just is like such a good idea. And can you imagine the business that could grow up around this? Very attractive.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be, there's money made on that side, and I think a way to fight this too is actually the legal systems are going to need to adjust. And basically, because the temptation to do these crimes is so great, because the likelihood of getting caught is so low, I think we're going to actually see changes in the punitive measures. And basically, as a deterrent, the punitive measures against these crimes are going to be have to be very, very stiff. I think
we already have laws against this, they were written in 1948 of all things,
right?
And it's pretty stiff penalties if you do these things to somebody and they die, you die,
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I like, for example, Terry reported something along the lines of some police officer who basically practically outed himself as either at least knowing about this, if not facilitating it, said the ridiculous thing that, a group of people stalking someone is not illegal.
Right.
That disgusted me. And I'll tell you what, if police officers are ever found to be participating in this, we know some of them are.
Oh, yeah.
Not only should they, that should be
huge.
That should be life in jail at the very least.
Yeah. And that for most of them means not long, because most of them don't last in jail. I think that's you're absolutely right. I see this as an industry that would grow. if there's money to be made, somebody's going to jump on it, and no matter how much money there is that's trying to push this on us, if there's enough money trying to combat it, it's just going to be, money matters to people. Money matters. I just think money behind developing all of these things to protect us could be just huge. Just huge.
Exactly. There's going to be big money on that side. So any entrepreneurs listening in who are secret friends of our cause, if you get ahead of the curve, the countermeasures, it's just that we're not there. We're not quite there yet. We're speaking like in terms of like down the road. Obviously we're far from that.
Yeah. But there's always a way. People have been working against evil for a very long time, and we get enough energy going on. I think the biggest problem is that people have felt helpless, and that there is nothing that they can do about it, and that's just not true. That's just not true. Dave has proven that to us with his CD, and I'm sure more of that will come along. We can do. We can beat this, you guys. We can.
Yeah, Dave, you should patent your ideas because you deserve to make money for helping TIs.
Yeah. Are you still with us, Dave?
Well, I copyrighted it.
Good.
I copyrighted it, but
the sound.
and that's not to stop people from sharing it. It's to stop corporations from stealing it from me.
Right. The last thing we want is for somebody to come in and start charging, $300 a CD to cure your
right, and they'll claim it as their own.
Exactly. Good for you. I'm glad you're doing
that. The last thing we want is the same corporate criminal corporate forces that are behind this to make money off of helping people at the same time, because then it's like you're making money off of both sides of a conflict.
Right. Not fair. Well, that's what we do. That's what we do in wars, overseas. Anyway.
And also, I'd like everybody to know also that there's many forms of mind control, and chemistry is one, and they add many chemicals to the food supply that will cause many effects. And I'm talking sodium benzenate. It makes you feel like someone's strangling you. Sodium triphosphate is a preservative. I actually was eating that, didn't know it. My eye was fluttering uncontrollably and closing. I could not open my left eye. And I went through my food, and I found out that chemical was in there. And, I went on down the line, and, monosodium glutamate is a simulated heart attack if you eat too much of that.
Yes.
So we as TIs, we need to eat very healthy.
Yes. And we need to take our supplements. And next Friday, we'll be back talking about simplifying our issues so that we can present them. But I will also be talking again about the supplements that Duncan approved of the site that I presented, and I think it's a very good site, and it talks about how to stay healthy with all of this. So I'll be presenting that too, because we need to stay healthy. I've taken supplements my whole life, and I think that's why I'm still walking around, because I get hit very hard. So.
Well, Linda, thank you for all you do. You really do a big contribution for the community. I know you probably have other people that want to talk. I am going to listen to the rest of your call, but if you don't mind, I'm just going to listen so that I can unwind and rest.
That is fine. I'm going to unmute, but before I do, you guys, I just want to say we're not here to argue. We are here to talk. We're not here to argue. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. One person I'm going to unmute right now is Terry, because I know he's probably got something to add. Terry, I'm unmuting you. I'm trying to unmute you, Terry. There you go. You're unmuted, Terry. He might not be at his Terry. Well, he just I guess not. Okay, Terry. Here we're going to go to some people that have their hands up. Arkansas. Well, I'll unmute. Okay. Can you talk to us, Arkansas? Please talk to us, okay? Hello, Arkansas? Okay. Central Michigan. Well, now that's number 4. Hi, Central Michigan. Your hand was up? No? Are you on mute? Have you muted yourself? Because we can't hear you.
Hello?
Hello?
Linda?
Yes, Mary?
Yes, this is Mary.
How you doing, Mary?
Oh, I'm not doing good. They hit me with everything today. Everything in the book today, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is my give back to the critters.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is Matt listening?
Matt's right here. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to talk to him. He needs to listen to exactly what I have to say because it's very important, okay?
Okay, I'm listening.
Okay. It was January of 2012, and the music started in my ear. I made a report about somebody was waking me up in the middle of the night, all right?
Yes.
So I went to management and I made a report. It started at 1 o'clock. It would be at 3 o'clock, a real loud noise that you would just come out of the bed. Okay. So apparently I got targeted and didn't know it. And it started with music in my ear. Now, I didn't know I was the only one that could hear that and nobody else. And then it progressed. I got such a high anxiety and panic attacks, although I didn't know this at the time, that I'd have to leave the apartment for 3 days at a time. My body was telling me to get out. God. Okay. And then come January. Now, this is very important. Because of the music in my ear, I had a long hallway. There was a bedroom. There was a bedroom at the end of the hallway. And I took a piece of foam, and I was laying in the hallway because I was thinking the music would be not so prevalent in my ear there. But at my head, on a shelf, I had a microwave.
Mm-hmm.
And it could have been, I'm trying to maybe 3 to 4 feet from my head. Now, at the end of this hallway was my bedroom, and I had the door closed. Now, I woke up to this. All over the side walls, the top of the ceiling, and this side was like a green phosphorus color grid. And I looked at the door that was maybe 10 feet away from me, that was the door to my bedroom that was closed, and there was the image of the microwave that was 3 feet from my head. Okay?
I hear you, yeah.
Okay. Now, a couple weeks later, I woke up in my bedroom, and there was the same grid-like green phosphorus grid, and there was something coming down on my feet. Particularly, my left foot was like being mapped. Okay?
There were like grid lines on your foot?
And on the ceiling. Grid lines.
Okay.
Green grid lines, which may be a theory that we are hooked up to the grid. Now, I don't know that. I do not know that. Okay? Okay. Now, as far as seeing through the eyes. Now, I don't know when this happened. So, in my peripheral vision, mainly in my right eye, is a spot. In my upper peripheral vision is a spot about the size of a pencil eraser that is brighter and lighter than my actual vision, and it's, how do I want to say, more like a telescope.
You mean the vision, like it's magnified in that spot?
It's magnified, but not a lot, but it's magnified, and it's like lighter than my actual vision, because I wear 2 pair of glasses, and one pair is my normal, and the other one is my it's a sun shield.
Okay.
Now I have this, and I never had what them call them black spots in your eye, floaters. I never had floaters till this happened. Also, on my arm, I have a round spots, and they're like aging spots, but they appeared overnight. Neil said one time those are radar spots. They just appeared on my body overnight. I have them on my rib cage, and I have the little cherry dots, little cherry raised things with the white inserts all over my body, and those are markers, because I can feel when they hit, they itch.
Now, who called those radar spots? Is that your term?
No, Neil said that.
Oh, Neil did. Okay.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just telling you. And I also have a cyst. They tried to put something in that cyst in the back of my neck. I never had a cyst before, but it got infected, and I had to have it drained. And again, there's something in that cyst, because it grows, it gets bigger, it gets harder, and there's something main in there. I have implants all over my body. My feeling is it took this person a year, because they moved in July of 2011. And you know, the couple days after he moved in, I used to feed the ducks. We had 2 ponds there, and I used to feed the ducks and the geese, and there was a bare spot that I used to put the food there. And this man took his dog and let that dog piss on that bare spot. What does that tell you? That told me, you stay away from that son of a bitch. And I did. And he's the one that put me in this program. He's the one that did everything. He never left the apartment. But to go to the store and get some cigars. Never left it. Was there all the time. He was there watching me on the balcony.
Well, I think a lot of us can relate to that kind of behavior.
And his name is Ken Holden. I want everybody to know this, because they're hitting me so hard. If I die, it's because of him and because of this. And
now
this is what?
Now, I just was curious.
Is there a possible way? Now, how could this microwave affect, your vision and your central nervous system? They could have altered the microwave when I was gone. I do not know this, but I used it when I was there. They could have done other things, put you to sleep, and do things with you that I didn't know, okay? Have you asked an eye doctor, a high special eye doctor, if a microwave, magneto microwave wave, your EEG, can they affect your vision? Or did they put a camera in there? I do not know that. I haven't gone to an eye doctor yet.
Mary, there are a lot of scientific papers that are on microwave effects on the eyes. So in general, we know that the eyes are very sensitive to microwaves.
And I wanted you to tell, because you've been on the call now second week about the eyes, so I wanted to tell you what happened to me personally.
Well, I'm glad you shared that with us because I like to hear those kinds of accounts. I've heard from many people that there are these visual effects, almost like phantom visions or holograms. They're very real, but and I myself experienced many of those effects. And one thing that your story is pointing out, and I'm not apologetic for this, but I think you illustrate that the bottom-up approach that I'm taking does have limitations, and I believe that these kinds of accounts that you're sharing with us and others are very valid, but we don't have an ability to give good explanations for those right now.
Not yet.
Well, you know it's my nervous system because you just stated, and I will tell you, the first time they really hit me was February 2nd of 2013. I come out of my daughter's bedroom, and my hands were shaking so bad. And then my daughter took me downstairs. She was in the bathroom, and my legs gave out, and I could not stand up. It took two people to hold me up, and I wound up in emergency because I didn't know what the hell was the matter. I wound up in emergency, but high anxiety. My blood pressure was 194. And it's never gone over 120, 130 the most. And I'm going to be 77 years old.
Well, I'm really sorry that you're getting attacked so badly. Your story sounds similar to what the stories out of Cuba are. I've heard you speak before. You sound like a legitimate victim of very severe radio frequency attacks. Do you have any idea why this person, Ken Holden, is doing this to you?
Well, simply because I probably made this I asked the management to look into him. First of all, he would cough all night. I never slept from July till October. I never slept, couldn't sleep in my bed at all because he would cough all night. So I said, could you speak to them, please? And ever since then, I think this was when it started. Now, the man's been married 5 times. He's a fucking psycho. It's just, I mean, there's no other words to put it. He's a psycho. And I believe he's ex-military.
Yeah, it sounds like he's just testing out his fancy toys and getting some kind of mentally ill thrill off of targeting you like that for no reason.
That's about it. Now, he was married, and the last month that he was doing this to me, there's no doubt his wife knew about it because she had told people there that she was sleeping on the couch and he was in the bedroom. And he started on her he was yelling and everything at her. She couldn't take it anymore. She had to leave. He just flipped. And there were what do I want to say? I had no idea, no knowledge of a electronic camera. There were eyes, like from an electronic camera. They were coming out of the. I want everybody to pay attention about cameras in the the fire things.
The fire alarm, the smoke detector.
Well, not only that, if you go online, you can find cameras that look like smoke sprinklers, like sprinklers. They look just like it. And that was in my apartment. So my apartment was bugged.
I think my apartment was bugged too. I think that's not that uncommon nowadays.
My house is. I know that.
No, but people have to look at those tape detectors and look at their smoke detectors and the sprinklers. Yes. And there was I was sitting in a corner and there was these eyes coming out of the smoke detectors looking for me. And I had all black on. And my grandson, who is got cerebral palsy, says that those cameras can't recognize black.
Yes, they can.
Huh?
Yeah, they can. Those cameras can recognize you.
Well, I don't know.
Go ahead.
Because I had all black on, and they were looking. There's another issue I want to tell you people about, because this is very important that I read today. Here is, again, in the newspaper, USA Today, Trump renews post 9/11 powers. He's extended it into the 17th year. And this is the bill. Okay, 7463. Bush did, giving himself sweeping powers to mobilize the military in the days after terrorist attacks that crashed jets into the World Center. The point is, Congress most of these 30 of these national emergencies remain, and Congress has never reviewed a single one in the history of the National Emergency Act. They're supposed to review this every 6 months. Now, here's a good place, which is, who looked into this, is the Liberty and National Security Program at the Brennan Center for Justice. The article, President renews post 9/11 powers. So we're not looking at him to sign anything away. That's at usatoday.com. This is Friday, September 15th, 2017. If anybody wants to look at the article online, it's there.
Thank you, Mary.
Well, thank you for sharing that information.
Yeah, and I'm hello?
Go ahead.
Matt will be back. Mary, Matt will be back, so, not to worry. He can probably give you more information as time goes on, just when you know that, okay?
Well, I just want to say thank you for sharing that information, and I wish people outside of our community would start listening in and hearing how good people like you are being treated this way, tortured this way. I want to have a country that is full of people like you, and I want to see people like Ken Holden in chains, and I want to see them do a perp walk right into jail for the rest of their life.
And Michigan has the strongest law. I went to the sheriff in where I live, and I said, I'd like an electronics expert. And I said, do you have one? He said, yes. So they met me at the apartment. And I told him what was happening. Of course, I didn't know what the heck was going on. I just told him what I thought, that this is coming out of here and this is coming out of here. And then he asked me, he knew. He asked me, did I have any enemies in corporations, or did I belong to a gang? I said, no, not that I'm aware of. But he kept looking at that sprinkler. And he kept looking at it, and he kept looking at it. And I knew there was something the matter with it because it didn't look right. So later on, after I left, I went on, and you can see these sprinklers, they're cameras. So people look at your smoke detectors, go online and see what kind of camera you can get in what kind of a shape, a spy camera. Because that's what was in my apartment.
Okay, they can do that. Thank you, Mary, very much for sharing this.
Thanks for the information. I've heard you speak many times on the calls, and I always appreciate hearing you and your information. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Mary. Okay. Mary, I'm going to silence your phone because it's got background noise. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Mary. She's so sweet and so helpful. Bless her heart. Okay. Terry? Are you with us? Terry?
Yeah, I'm here.
There you are. I tried to unmute you earlier. Couldn't get you up. Okay, we're going to open up a few more people who've had their hands up. Okay. But did you hear what Matt and Michael had to say tonight? Wasn't it great?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was great. I actually got a chance to talk to Matt a little bit earlier today. We see very much eye to eye on many issues. So
good. And once we get this all put together, and I think we may be able to come up with some fairly shiny little booklets, and to add to. Well, we'll all talk about it. Okay. So we can get this out there. We can get this.
Oh yeah, we're going to win this war. I have no doubt.
Yeah. I do too. Okay, then now I've also Pirate Mikey is still with us. Good. I've got you unmuted, California. Did you want to talk? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Hi, is that Linda?
Yeah, hi there.
Hi, Linda. How you doing? About what we wanted to address is the most common effects of electronic harassment that we hear about and that we seem to experience. We want to address those issues. Just a minute. This is not about me. Okay. Just address them. All right. Whether it's documented or not documented, but relatively provable. For instance, I think one of the most important things that we seem to ignore is the fact that the guy that is now living in Russia, we were just talking about him, that worked for the NSA, and he became a whistleblower. He's given us some solid information, and we somehow keep going off into these other venues. He's talking about the fact that, the way they read our minds is they do hook into our computers. They do watch how we compose, how we pause and then back up, change our minds. That's what they can watch, and they get a lot of information about us that way. They also.
You're talking about Edward Snowden?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Matthew. Yes. He's given us and he's from the inside. Derek has been talking about the security guy who's from the inside, whistleblower. Well, Edward Snowden was really on the inside writing this stuff and really knows what they can do from the inside. I think he's just such a wise source for us to rely on. What he says, I think, is so important for us to understand. And he says that's how they can, he says, no, they don't read your minds. They read your mind that way. They pick it up off of what you type. It's also how he says they see what you're thinking is by watching what you type. That's what he's talking about. Now, I know a lot of people have decided that, we can see through the eyes, and I'm sure at some point that will be proven. I'm not sure that's totally what we need to present to the whole world right now, because I'm not sure they're going to move in with that and say, yeah, okay. But if Edward Snowden talks about a very logical platform for this information, then I think that's really valuable for us, because it's a very valid, valuable source. Okay, what we all talked about with regards to these issues that we all experience, number one, physical, and the physical pain, tingling, electric feeling that when you start to tingle and you feel like electricity is running from you. And next issue is vibrations and muscles twitching. My mouth is swollen today. I sound very weird. Muscle twitching, trembling, heart racing. Boy, that's a tough one. Heart racing, nausea, sweating, shortness of breath. Some of these really physical things that are so uncomfortable for us. Okay. Injuries that we receive, the burns, the burst capillaries, loss of hair. Some people have blood to their sinuses. Some have blood out of their noses, ears. Okay. Now, also the mind nervous system is kind of in line with this, but well, anyway, okay. A lot of us experience depression, confusion, PTSD effects, and I can't read the other thing I wrote down. Brought on by radio frequencies. A lot of this is about radio frequencies. Is that my understanding? Okay. Okay, we talked about mental effects. Also, we wanted to press, too, that if you do go to the doctor, please don't tell them what you think it is. Please just give them what the physical impact is on your body, what's happening to you physically. It's the doctor's job to work it out and treat you in a manner that relieves your symptoms. That's his job. It's not your job to inform him of where they're coming from because, we're not real sure yet. When we are absolutely sure, great. But we're not absolutely sure yet. So before we start telling doctors, you don't want to go. I think less and less people are being put into mental hospitals these days because we do have proof. But don't push it. Please don't. And then we've also got issues of B2K, visual effects complained of. I'm not sure that we got into that very well, Matthew, but I know you know what we're talking about there. And activism. If we don't do anything, then nothing is going to get done, and we know that. We all know that. So if we can at least get out there and pass out the flyers, do something. Do research. Sit and research. And write it up. Send it to Terry. Terry is wonderful about taking the information he gets and posting it on his site, which is going to be the biggest one ever soon. I mean, he's got so much great information there. If you need to know something, go to Terry's site. You'll find it there. And he's really dedicated. So that's kind of where we're going tonight. We want to talk about those subjects. Matthew's going to give us some background information on it. And Matthew is concerned that I'm pushing. Matthew is not, none of us are trying to say Matthew is the be-all to end-all. He knows everything. No. Matthew has a good self knowing this stuff. He's not feeling like he's somehow superior or anything. He's just here to do his best to help us. That's what we're all trying to do. Just help. We're not here to have controversies and get into fights about who has the most important information. It kind of doesn't matter. We just want it to be useful and to have people be interested in reading it. Okay? So, Matthew, there you go. That's my presentation.
Well, thanks for that list, Linda. I think that pretty much covers what I hear as the more common effects that people report when they're under this kind of harassment. What do you think, Mike?
Mike? Oh my God! No, you're unmuted.
Sorry, I'm right here. I think that that actually covers a part of what people have to try and get together and realize what is happening to them and what isn't happening to them. And we're trying to start getting people together to realize that we have to just try to get out of our own echo chamber, I think is what we could say. Yeah. Sorry, I just got home. From someplace. I'm trying to put some stuff away.
Oh,
no problem.
Too long we've been kind of living in like our own echo chamber where we all get together and pass around information and talk about information on the calls about different things that most of us have read and try and take it as gospel because it seems like that's what's happening to us. And because the articles or the sites that we get the information from seem like they're legitimate, credible sources. And more than 50% of the time, they're not. And I'm sure that people will say, no, I'm wrong, and on and on and on. But I've been doing this for a while. I've been here listening to people bounce this stuff back and forth for 10 years. And I'm sure there's other people around there for 10 years. That's way too long for me or for anyone. And we have to try to get down, even if it's not something that anyone finds exciting or
right.
We have to have the truth. We have to have rational truth that we can take to the people outside of our own little echo chamber, which we're going to actually have to dismantle ourselves. When we go to the people outside the community that we think will be able to help us and at least understand what's going on, we have to give them things that they can understand and won't turn away after the third sentence because it sounds too strange, it doesn't sound rational, and the delusional rubber stamp on your forehead is coming into their into their vision. So, yeah.
May I say, okay? Yes. Damn it! Thank you. That you totally remind. Okay, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off. I thank you for saying that. And you're right about the delusional. You know, you guys. You know how we all found out information slowly? Think about what you now think, and think about when you very first came here. If you heard all of what you're hearing now, would you have said, these people are crazy? Back then, you know, we're presenting information to people who never have even heard what we're talking about before. And that's why we need to weed out the extraneous. Maybe it's all true, and maybe someday we will all have it proven, and it will be wonderful. But right now we need to streamline so we can move forward, you know, and not go around in these circles. Is that making sense? Right, Mike? Right, Matt?
Yep, that makes a lot of sense to me.
And probably because of this, a lot of what we've talked about in the past shouldn't be talked about in the future. We should scrap a lot of it and really focus on things that we can verify and get across to one another and to people outside the community.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't worry.
What's happening in Cuba?
Well, yeah. I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't worry. We're not going to say you're never going to hear about it again, and that's not true. And that, you know, let's ease it out of the way for now. Let's put it in the side pocket for now. All this other stuff, and go with the main information.
Because every day our lives, another day, another hour, another week, another month is being taken away because this is always looming.
Right.
Not only is it looming or lurking, it's trying to be the main focus of our lives. And I think that because I've been involved with the community to a greater or lesser extent for the past 10 years, that's way too much of my life and anyone's life. And because of the lack of credibility and the lack of people who would be at the forefront, who could that we could be able to put on the front line to communicate with people outside the TI community was lacking, and there were a lot of missteps and wrong turns. I think that now in the past couple of years, the momentum has really built up for us to be able to get a valid foothold. We really have to try this. That's too long. It does. You know, how long do you think it's going to be? How long? It's never tolerable to let people continue on like this, to mock everyone's life, to try and torment them, to gaslight them, to psychologically abuse them, to physically abuse them. Any of this.
Yeah, this is not.
This has to. It can't.
What's happening in Cuba?
Yeah. 157. Thank you very much. Are you going to be around tomorrow?
Yeah.
Good.
And I sent you another version of the CD. Did you get that?
Yes, I certainly did, and it's a little easier on the air. My only problem is that I was listening to it through my computer because I had to, and my computer went down. So I need to work a deal with you where I can send you some funds, and maybe we can arrange something, okay? If we can.
Well, yeah, if you can just send me your letter.
Oh, yeah. Oh, really? Well, that went down with the help on that computer. I have bought a good CD, hopefully to make things better. But yeah, you will, and it'll be even better because I get to talk about the fact how many CD players have been destroyed when I've tried to use it. Somebody does not want that to be used. That's a pretty good confirmation that this is it is very useful. And I know because I haven't been able to use it for a while, and my fear factor has gone way up. I'm afraid of everything. When I use that, I'm not afraid. When I can't use it, I hear the tinnitus at night, and I wake up yelling at myself about how I can't do anything right, and I'm scared. So that's a really important aspect of your CD. Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of reports gotten a lot of reports the version 3 CD is helping much better with the D2K. So
great. I don't have that.
Those letters I get.
Yeah, that's so good.
Well, I'm just telling everybody, you know.
You mean not just me? I'm just kidding. Yes, that is great. That is so good, Dave. You also have, and it's something that we can plug in our rooms, and it will kind of take in the whole room, right?
That's a filter plug that removes any frequencies from your house wiring. But, you know, the CD is way better, more powerful system. And, you know, that's more important than the wall plug.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. But thank you. Thank you, you guys. Okay. Here we go. Matt, where were you? Mike, where were you? Where were we? I'm supposed to be running this show. I don't have a clue. Okay.
Well, we were talking a little bit about the Cuba incident.
Yeah.
And one thing that I'm personally holding out on for more information is that I'm not convinced yet that these are necessarily sonic attacks. That's what they're being called.
Yeah.
But I believe that the same symptoms could be mediated by radio frequency assaults, which just might be being called sonic attacks because maybe that's a little bit easier for the media to wrap their heads around. I don't know if we have complete information on that. They may be sonic attacks, but I think we're going to hopefully get more enlightenment and more verified information on that. Certainly, the attacks are some kind of electronic attacks, very very much like what TIs experience, and that's very significant.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, I think I'm not sure who reported. Was it our government reported that? Well, I was going to say then people will believe it, but that's not necessarily true, is it?
I don't even know if we know the timeline of how that information came out. Yeah, I mean, was it the State Department that released that, or are those victims talking to the media themselves?
I don't know.
No, the State Department would not allow them to talk to the victims. Because there's ongoing investigation. The State Department released the information.
Whoa. Well, that's good. There's something else. I don't know if we talked about this, Mike and Matt, when we talked. I don't think we talked about the biofilm, but the department. Oh, we did on your call, right, Mike? Didn't we talk about this on your call?
We did for a little bit, right?
Yeah. And Sumaya's got a lot of information on the biofilm. The biofilm has been confirmed by the Department of what is it called, Mike? Well, the health agency for the government. They have
Health and Human Services.
No, it's DIH. I'm not sure who that is. Department of Health and whatever. I'm sorry, I'm not very intelligent tonight. I've been hammered so hard, and my brain is so dead.
Sorry.
Thank you. In any event, the biofilm.
Can you summarize that story? Can you put that story into a nutshell? I
wish I could.
I'm not aware of that information.
Okay, and I don't, and I'm not sure I even have the link, but I'm sure I do because I saved it in Terry's file. It's about the fact that there is a biofilm. The bacteria in the dirt does create they sort of create a war between themselves.
Talk shoes. Recorded live.
Okay, I'm trying to find my headphones that actually let you hear me and let me hear you, and I'm having a little trouble doing that. They were just here. But I will do that in a minute because we're going to talk to Matt again, or Matt's going to talk to us about some of the logical aspects of some of the stuff that we're dealing with, so that we can present it logically to whomever we decide to present it to in a cohesive fashion. And damn it, we may just have to do this with my weird So, and and I'm the only one who's been in the house all day, so I know it's not them. Anyway, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, guys. Okay, Matthew, you're there? You're with me? Can you hear me?
I'm with you.
Good. Okay.
If my microphone sounds bad at all, you let me know, and I'll switch to putting the phone to my head.
Oh, we don't want to hear you do that. Okay. Okay, hon. Okay. I'm going to mute the room while we go through this information. Okay, you guys.
Is Mike with us tonight, too?
Yeah, he sure is. He's right there.
Okay, this is a team effort.
Yeah. Hi, Mike. Yeah.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, how are you?
Okay. Good, how are you?
Good.
Okay. I had a whole presentation that went by the wayside, but I still have the one we put together the other day, so I'm not totally without here. But I do want to, as I mute the room, hold on, you guys. I just want to make it clear what we're trying to do so that everybody understands and doesn't feel that we're, I don't know. I don't know how to put it, but I'm trying to mute the room. There we go. I don't know why Southeast Missouri didn't mute. I'm Matthew. I'm going to unmute you, and there we go. And Mike. Okay. Come on, Mike. Yours is coming. There we go. Okay. What we're doing here is trying to. Now my computer has frozen. This is just adorable. There we go. Kind of the idea here and what we're going to do, and if need be, we'll do it on a separate forum, but I think it'd be good if we could do this here, is basically the idea is to weed through all the information that is out there. There's a lot of information, and streamline it in so that it can be presented in a logical format to people who can help us. And if we start going on too many extraneous issues, they're just going to say, "Hey, we don't care. There's too much information. We don't want to give them too much information to find a way not to be concerned about it." And who is cracking that noise? Whoever's eating, don't. Okay. All right. Also, some people have complained about the way I handle the call or whatever, and I just want to tell you guys that if you don't like my call, you don't have to come here. There are 3 other calls on Friday night. That one of them is John, who used to do calls, and then he kind of drifted away for quite a while and got kind of inconsistent because of his own issues. Anyway, he's still around, and he alternatively has calls on Friday nights at 9 at the same time as this. We have Lauren, who has her call that she set up opposite of mine on Friday nights, and I think she talks about birth certificates, and we're on the stock market or something, and Social Security issues being traded on the stock market. I'm not sure what that's all about, but there is another call. And then there's a Beth from Florida who has a call, and she announced that she was going to have it on Neil's call quite a while ago, and I think Neil posted it. I'm not sure if he's still got it, but I'm sure you can ask Neil more about it. And there is her Friday night call too. So there are a total of 4 Friday night calls. So don't feel that you're stuck here. If you don't want to be here, nobody is going to make you be here. Okay, that's what I'm saying. And as I say, our goal is to streamline things, get them in a logical platform that we can move forward with. And we've got a great part of this group, Terry, who's adamant about getting all this information out there one way or the other. And Terry's now looking into multimedia groups to get this out to. He's not just sticking with people he's handing them to. He's going all the way, and that's terrific. And what we want is some really good, concise information for him to send so we can get moving with this. Okay. So I think that's all I wanted to say. I was mad when I wrote that because I keep getting sniped by somebody. So, but I don't think I'll go into all that. Okay. I don't know where my other thing is. Okay. What we talked about, But Matt and Mike and I talked.
What's happening in Cuba is really going to help the TIs because of this is setting a precedent. This date case, sorry. But yeah, in Cuba, this is direct evidence of this technology being used on U.S. diplomats. That means we will be able to subpoena their investigation, and that will be supporting evidence of this technology that proves that it exists and is being used.
Is that Dave Case?
The sonic attack on our diplomats.
Did I hear Dave Case? Dave, hi. You need to join the conference we have every so often. But I didn't know you were there.
Hi, Dave. How's it going?
Good to see you. Good to hear from you.
Hey, how you doing?
So glad to hear you here.
Good.
And yeah, I think we all agree with that. This is great information. Edward Snowden has busted them. You know, the Cuba issue. There is solid proof that something is going on. We don't have to run around and worry about going to Mars anymore. You know, we just don't. We just don't have to get crazy anymore. We can just stay within the proof. We have proof. And and just your CD, Dave, that counters the tinnitus so well. I mean, that's proof too. Don't you think? That's proof that they're doing something to us and that it can be countered. Are you there, Dave?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that's proof. What do you guys, Mike, Matt, what do you think?
I think that Dave's countermeasure, in being a critical thinker, I wouldn't call it proof of what they're doing, but I would say that it's a good demonstration that a countermeasure that interfaces with your sensory system and perceptions is having some positive effect, suggesting that the harassment signals are also having an effect on your sensory systems, nervous system, and perceptions. So to me, I would say it that way, that it's a demonstration that a countermeasure on the same system is helping something, suggesting that the harassment signal is impacting those systems also.
Okay, but would a countermeasure work if there wasn't the original measure in the first place?
Well, I think you just said it. You just said what I was trying to say in a more careful way.
Oh, okay.
What you just said.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, that's what I was trying to say too.
Yeah.
I guess it didn't come out quite right.
Well, I have many testimony letters, and we're up to 180 people that have been helped or cured. So legally, that is eyewitness testimony.
Yes.
And I do believe that is evidence that their equipment exists. And,
I like it.
Eyewitness testimony is legitimate evidence in court of law.
Right. I agree. And I think you're highlighting the Cuba thing is really important. And if I may, I just want to say a couple things on that. One thing that situation instructs me about is that probably I'm assuming that is getting of because what you could call what a scientist might say about that is that there was a cluster of incidents, and because it was clustered and because it was affecting high-profile people, it was impossible to be ignored when a cluster of prominent people were complaining about these exotic symptoms. And so that's instructive to me because moving forward, I think TIs will be able to use that same approach. We have been trying to do that, but especially if things are tightly clustered, if people in the same household are assaulted that way within a short space of time, that's obviously very powerful, and that's probably what's driving these revelations from Cuba.
And thank God we've got those revelations. That is serious information for us, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some
and those diplomats.
Yeah. With brain damage, hearing loss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think
the
that,
effects of
their symptoms
yeah.
were very similar to the TIs, chirping like crickets in their ears, ringing, many of the same effects that people talk about on these calls. These diplomats were experiencing.
Yeah. Well, the tinnitus was something that they were discussing, I think, and that's a little scary. I mean, although, well, it'll be less scary for me soon. I want to talk to you tomorrow, Dave. Do I have you don't mind giving your phone number out on the call, do you, Dave?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 573.
My other computer went down.
300.
573 300. Okay.
1579.